The story begins in a snow-covered kingdom in the north, ruled by the Grand Duke, Varas. Within this frigid realm, a young woman sat by a window. Today was her wedding day. The ruler of this kingdom, Grand Duke Varas, was a celebrated war hero, but he was also a ruthless man, feared by all. At the tender age of 9, he had buried his own father. For the next 2 years, he kept a close watch on his father's killer, feigning the role of a war orphan, cleaning the man's stables. Finally, when Varas had earned the man's trust, no longer arousing suspicion, he exacted his revenge. Though criticized for his deceit, he cared little. Varas then spent 16 years on the battlefield, leading the empire to victory, one hard-fought battle at a time. But there was a significant problem. Every full moon, Varas became savage and brutal, forced to acknowledge the sacrifices he demanded. Varas earned 2 titles, Hero and Butcher. The heroine of this story was Violet. Today was the day she was to marry a butcher, and that butcher was none other than Varas. There was a long line of noble women and aristocratic ladies eligible to marry Varas, all awaiting his approval. But it was unclear why he had chosen Violet, an orphan with nothing but her name. Was it her beauty? Love at first sight? No, it couldn't be. The butcher wouldn't do such a thing. Even if he had taken interest, he likely just wanted a woman, because tonight, after their wedding night, Varas planned to imprison his bride for life. How could she possibly know all this? At this moment, Violet held her head in her hands, thinking, "Isn't this the novel I was reading?" Looking up at the sky, she cried out, "Even for a romance novel, isn't this too much? What a waste." Violet remembered someone approaching her before she was transported here. "Hey, Violet, reading novels again? Let's start rehearsals." Violet had replied, "All right. Winter break sales were so bad, I don't want to read anything else. It's awful." She continued, "It feels like a joke. You don't like this kind of thing, do you?" Violet smiled to herself, thinking, "I finished it." Back in the present, Violet thought, "Even though I finished the whole novel, I still can't escape the fate of sharing a bed tonight." She reluctantly took a step. Things had gotten worse when she woke up to find the ceremony was over and she had to wait for Varas in the room. She lay stiffly on the bed. "If I run away, it will be worse. I don't have a penny. How can I escape?" Violet looked at her hands. This body is beautiful but too thin. Before being transported here, when she was short on money, Violet survived on seaweed and rice. But she was healthier than this current body. Violet's eyes grew heavy. "This is troublesome. I'm too sleepy. If I don't escape today, I'll be a prisoner for life." Just as Violet was about to fall asleep, someone entered from outside, carrying a lantern. The light startled Violet awake. "It's so bright." Has Varas returned to his room after resting? She sat up. In the story, he's supposed to be a cruel duke. Her eyes flickered towards Varas, wondering if he was truly as terrifying as they said. Taking in his physique, she thought, "He's tall, but I didn't expect him to be this intimidating." Suddenly, Varas asked, "What are you doing here?" Startled, Violet immediately replied, "I'm sorry, I was just a little sleepy." A hint of sadness touched her face. "I'll leave soon, so don't worry." Hearing this, Varas glanced at her. Just as Violet was about to leave, a chill ran down her spine. She looked at him, thinking that now that he was back in the room, escape might be impossible. Varas placed the lantern on the table. "Go to sleep," he said, cutting her off. "Just go to sleep." Seeing Barris's intimidating face, Violet quickly lay down. "Yes," she replied, squeezing her eyes shut. "He's a little scary, but handsome. He looks like a bear, kinda cute." Lost in her thoughts, Violet drifted off to sleep. "Why does my heart race when I see his face? Oh well, I'm too tired." Seeing Violet asleep, Varas remained silent. He said nothing, gently sitting beside her. No one knew what Varas was thinking at that moment, but he clenched his fists so tightly that the veins bulged, and the look he fixed on the sleeping Violet was terrifying. When Violet awoke again, it was morning. She touched the spot beside her, where someone had slept, but it was already cold. Did Varas sleep somewhere else? Violet got out of bed, stretching contentedly. She felt a pang of loneliness, but wasn't this better? I slept so soundly. Just as she thought this, Violet suddenly noticed something across the room. Varas was sitting nearby. He was just there. Seeing Violet awake, Varas glanced in her direction. "He looks much better in the light," Violet thought. "I didn't see you, Your Grace, so I assumed you were elsewhere," she said. Suddenly, Violet looked down at her attire and realized something was amiss. Panic flared within her. After a moment of stunned silence, she quickly dove onto the blankets. Lying there, Violet was distraught. "What should I do? I'm at my husband's house. I thought it was just a coincidence, but it was real. Varas looked out the window, lost in thought. I got married yesterday. Most people are afraid of me, too afraid to even look me in the eye. Even servants don't show me any kindness. A normal marriage is impossible for me. His thoughts drifted to Violet. I even married someone nicknamed the Devil. That poor woman. But Varas kept recalling Violet's gaze, especially yesterday's, and even what had just happened. Varas remembered Violet's expression and words when she first woke up. I didn't see you, Your Grace, so I assumed you were elsewhere. He hesitated, wondering if she, too, was afraid of him. It seemed she simply treated him like an ordinary person. At this moment, thinking about these things, Varas felt a splitting headache. After a moment of contemplation, he sighed. What a waste of time. He stood up from his seat. What a ridiculous thought. Just as Varas reached the door, Violet peeked out from under the covers. It seemed he was leaving. She quickly jumped out of bed and scurried away. Maybe he's giving me space to change. Violet stood in front of the wardrobe. Besides, he doesn't seem anything like how he was described in the original novel, does he? Violet imagined Varas holding instruments of torture. Didn't he do things like that before? Violet selected an outfit. That couldn't happen, could it? Then she fumbled with the clothes. How does this even go on? I need to read more romance novels. After a while, Varas returned to the room. Seeing Varas turn around, Violet quickly turned her back. As Varas walked past, Violet curiously glanced back at him. Varas went to the bed. Then he picked up a bottle filled with a red liquid and poured it onto the bed. Seeing this, Violet collapsed to the floor in fright. Is that blood? Violet was terrified. What is this? Is he summoning a demon? This is more like a scene from a horror story. Seeing Varas look back at her, she wondered, who is he targeting? Violet was utterly confused and afraid. Is it me? But suddenly a hand reached out. The floor is cold, Violet. Violet was utterly astonished by what she saw. Varas was sitting in front of her, his hand outstretched. Take my hand. Hearing this, Violet took Varas's hand and stood up. Thank you. Varas said to Violet, let me help you get dressed. Okay. At this moment, Violet recalled the feeling from just now. His hands are so big and thick, truly a man's hands. Violet blushed, thinking he's just like a big bear. Looking at Violet's attire, Varas appeared extremely embarrassed. He watched Violet's back, petite, fair-skinned, with slender shoulders. He picked up the straps of her dress, feeling as if they might snap at any moment. Lost in thought, Varas tugged on the strap a little too hard. Violet, thinking he had called her, turned around and asked, is something the matter? A sudden knock startled Varas, causing him to tug on the strap again. A voice called from outside, it's me, Anna. Enter, Varas replied. The person who entered was Anna, the head maid. I've come to assist the Duchess in getting ready, she announced. Violet, seeing this, said happily, thank you. Varas, standing behind her, released the straps of Violet's dress and watched her run towards Anna. Varas looked at his hand, then clenched it. My hand feels so empty. If I locked the door and kept her here, she wouldn't have left my hand like that, would she? Varas stood to the side, watching as Anna helped Violet prepare. After a while, Varas addressed Anna. Prepare breakfast for the Duchess. Hearing this, Anna bowed. Yes, I'll prepare it right away. Watching the two of them, Violet stood there thinking, I can still smell the blood. I need some fresh air. With that thought, Violet walked towards the window and threw it open. She stood there, gazing out at the view of the entire kingdom. Suddenly, Violet sighed. Even though last night passed without incident, she began recalling the plot of the novel. In the original story, Violet's failure to successfully host a party led to her imprisonment, while Varas announced his retirement to focus on external affairs, residing within the Duchess's chambers. The 20-year-old girl who appeared, trembling, held no trace of pity in her eyes. That monster became even more depraved. Violet rested her head against the window frame. Unlike the original story, I haven't been imprisoned yet. Or rather, there's no hope in this situation. Her hands began to tremble. If I don't leave today, I'll lose my chance to escape forever. But to go to a freezing kingdom without any preparation. At that moment, Violet was deeply conflicted about what to do. Just then, Varas stood at the door. May I come in? Varas waited quietly for a moment. When he heard no response, Varas opened the door and entered. He saw Violet sitting by the window, looking outside. Varas wondered if she was cold. I heard she's from the warm north, he thought as he slowly walked towards her. Perhaps she likes this weather. Hearing footsteps, Violet turned to look. By then, Varas was already standing beside her. When we first met, his large physique was a bit intimidating, but his actions and demeanor are quite to my liking. Violet thought. Varas spoke. I heard you haven't eaten anything yet. Are you hungry? Violet pondered the question. As expected, there's not a shred of pity in his eyes when he looks at me. Violet imagined a lion standing before a small rabbit. Should she say yes? If the rabbit asked for something? Thinking about this, Violet struggled to suppress a laugh. She felt she shouldn't laugh, but in the end, she couldn't help but let out a chuckle. Varas, seeing this, was taken aback. Is she laughing? He wondered. Perhaps Violet liked being asked if she was hungry, he surmised. At that moment, it seemed everyone was curious about the Duke's every move. Anna appeared, saying, "Allow me to explain the Duke's behavior. He spent his youth on the battlefield and never had the opportunity to interact with women. While he attended celebratory banquets hosted by nobles, he never spoke to anyone who approached him. If he made eye contact with anyone, they would invariably leave and ignore him. Because of that fear, his interactions with women have been non-existent." At this, Violet spoke to Varas. On second thought, I'd like to go for a walk. Having said that, Violet was a little surprised. I'm getting out of here clear in my head. They won't let me out. I'm not a prisoner, am I? At least give me some freedom. But contrary to her thoughts, Varas extended his hand towards Violet, surprising her. Varas said, "If you want to go out, you must first stand up." Having changed her clothes, Violet was now leaving the room with Varas. Trailing behind him, she thought, what am I wearing? This dress is so difficult to move in. Suddenly, she blushed, but he was still considerate, noticing my attire. Lost in her thoughts, she was startled when Varas abruptly turned around. Violet closed her mouth. Was I walking too slowly? Does he want me to walk faster? Varas walked towards her and extended his arm. Seeing this gesture, Violet was confused. Is he offering me his arm? Why isn't he saying anything? He just extended his elbow. Or is he trying to change my perception of him? I'm not sure. Should I hurry up? Varas remained silent, his arm still offered. He recalled his ade's words. When a woman appeared uncomfortable, escorting her was considered basic courtesy. The one who had advised Varas on such matters was August. Varas frowned, remembering August's words. Unless specifically prohibited, always remember to do this at parties. A flurry of conflicting thoughts raced through Varas's mind. Clenching his fist, he thought, they might not get along, but Violet and I are married now. And unlike the others, she doesn't seem particularly afraid of me. Seeing that Violet still hadn't moved, Varas turned away. What is this? He thought, continuing to walk. She's just a woman brought here for reasons he doesn't understand. Should he imprison her? Starting tomorrow, he wouldn't let her see the outside world again. Lost in thought, Varas was unaware of Violet stumbling behind him. She pitched forward, but luckily he caught her. Violet found herself pressed against his thigh, surprised. So firm, she thought. Varas's expression mirrored her own surprise. Her waist is so slender, so light like the weight of a rabbit. Varas fixed Violet with a formidable gaze. I need to fatten her up before winter arrives. Spread rugs before the fireplace, and I must seal the windows tight. That way, she definitely won't be able to escape. The reason for such thoughts stemmed from Varas's lifelong unfamiliarity with love. His entire life had been lived without purpose. In the end, he wouldn't realize his loneliness until death. In the original storyline, Violet wept, lamenting, "What a foolish man." Imprisoned, she still developed feelings for her captor. It could be said she fell in love with Varas at some point. But Varas? Sadly, for him, Violet was merely a woman to bear his children. Recalling this information from the novel, Violet sighed. Such a pity, she thought. But now I understand why the Violet in the original story opened her heart. When I fell, he suddenly rushed over and caught me with those hands. In that moment, I felt his strength, the feeling of him behind me. Violet blushed, lost in thought, while Varas watched her with a puzzled expression. Violet flushed crimson. I knew it would be difficult, but I didn't expect it to be this intense. Did he put on cologne before coming here? Probably not. In the original story, he was supposed to be a savage brute, but after meeting him, I find he's actually quite sweet and mature. Totally my type. If this keeps up, I think I might actually fall for him. But it's definitely not, because Varas is my type, and I'm defenseless against him, okay? Seeing Violet lost in thought, Varas extended his hand towards her. If you want to walk more easily, you should slow down and be more careful. Why are you in such a hurry? Hearing this, Violet blushed and took his hand. Holding on to him, she thanked him. The two of them had now exited the palace. Violet looked around. It was a truly beautiful and magical place. Varas simply stood quietly, observing Violet. He thought that since it was still far from warm, the scenery wasn't particularly impressive. What did she like about the barren fields and bare branches? Her face was filled with joy, her smile like. Thinking this, Varas abruptly paused. He really shouldn't be comparing her to a ghost, but he couldn't help but think of her previous, almost spectral, air. Violet was simply marveling at the things she'd only read about in the novel. Truly, the real thing was different. It wasn't a stage set. Back when Violet was still in the circus, she used to imagine herself in Hollywood, but this scene was even better. Gazing at the high walls, Violet thought, but I can never go back to Enoch. I'll have to live like a hero in prison. What was so special about this scenery? Violet's expression fell. If I can escape, I hope I can at least win someone's heart. Just a moment ago, she had been delighted by this ancient, ugly castle in the children's garden. Varas noticed the shift in Violet's expression. He clenched his fist. Why was she unexpectedly happy just now? And now she wears such a sorrowful expression. Why was she delighted by this ancient, ugly castle in the children's garden just now? With that thought, he strode towards Violet. Varas gripped her arm, pulling her back. Do you really think your husband is a monster? Violet looked at Varas with a bewildered expression. Varas turned away, a flicker of unease in his eyes. We should go. With that, he turned and walked away. Damn it, this is the woman I brought back, but why isn't she afraid? Just as his irritation flared, he heard Violet's voice behind him. I'm sorry. Varas turned to see her looking embarrassed. May I hold your hand? Varas was taken aback by the request. It seems she's inwardly delighted. Let me see. Perhaps she's been out in the cold too long and has softened. But her endurance has limits. Perhaps she's reached them. In Varas's vivid imagination, Violet collapsed into his arms, and he, eyes gleaming, swept her up. If you're having a hard time, I'll hold you, Varas imagined himself saying. And Violet replying, thank you, Varas. But that was only in his mind. In reality, a faint blush colored Varas's cheeks as he extended his hand, thinking, if that moment comes, I must hold her tightly. After some struggle, they finally returned to their chambers. Although she acted as if she might collapse at any moment, she walked normally enough. Back in the warmth of the room, Violet exclaimed, It's so warm in here. She walked towards the fireplace. I think Anna has already lit the fire. With that, Violet fell silent, slowly removing her coat. Observing her, Varas wondered, why isn't she talking anymore? He simply stood, watching her movements. What should I say to break this atmosphere? But before Varas could speak, Violet, having shed her coat, remarked, It's really peaceful here. Varas thought, peaceful? Noticing his expression, Violet continued, I really enjoyed today. The scenery was truly beautiful. We should go out together like this sometimes. Varas didn't reply, only thinking, how could she talk about taking a stroll so casually? Isn't she afraid of me? Wait, I was planning to lock her in her room as soon as we got back here. But what's happening now? Seeing his continued silence, Violet asked, Excuse me, sir, are you all right? But Varas was still lost in his thoughts. Yes, it's all because of those eyes. When I look into those eyes, I'm captivated by this woman. No, don't forget the original purpose. You have to remind yourself, don't forget the original purpose. So today, but before he could continue that train of thought, Varas asked with a forced smile, Varas, are you all right? Seeing Violet's expression, he immediately forgot that thought. She looks tired. It's best to talk about it tomorrow. He draped a blanket over her. No, sleep first. Indeed, it was already morning, and Violet lay motionless in bed. So warm. Anna was tending the fireplace when she noticed Violet stir. With a curtsy, Anna said, You're awake, Duchess. Violet was startled by the formal address. You don't need to be so formal with me. But then she realized it felt strange to be treated that way by someone older than her. Anna replied, Everyone will greet and treat you this way. Violet listened as Anna fell silent, seemingly lost in thought. After a brief silence, Violet spoke. I don't know if you've noticed, but I was raised as a commoner, without any aristocratic qualities. At times like these, I really don't know what to do, so I hope you can help me. Anna thought to herself, I knew it. She doesn't seem to understand these things very well. but her voice isn't bad. From that perspective, it'll make sense soon enough. She pushed the food cart forward. Please, have your meal. After breakfast, Violet changed into another dress and lay on the bed, thinking, it's so warm and comfortable. Now what should I do? A thought suddenly struck her, and she sat up abruptly. Come to think of it, no one said I couldn't leave the haunted room. In the original story, Violet was a prisoner, but I'm not yet. She immediately went to the wardrobe to find a cloak. I need to go out for some fresh air, enjoy the warm sunlight, she thought as she put on the cloak and quickly walked out of the room. If I stay here all the time, people might start gossiping, saying I'm depressed. But just as she reached the door, Violet was startled to see Anna standing there. Anna spoke. It's Anna. Where are you going? Seeing Anna's imposing expression, Violet felt a little nervous. I just wanted to go out for a while. Staying here all the time feels like being imprisoned, she thought. Has she been waiting behind the door the whole time? As she pondered this, Violet noticed what Anna was holding. Ah, it's lunch. Anna continued. Would you like to have lunch? Violet replied. It feels a little stuffy inside. Anna considered this. The Duchess wants to go outside? I can offer an experience that's better than dining indoors. She then told Violet, there's a table in the hallway. Eating there will make you feel like you're camping. Violet responded with delight. Really? She then asked, can we go now? Seeing Violet smile, Anna suddenly felt a strange sensation. I'll go prepare it right away. In no time, Anna had prepared a table full of food for Violet. Seeing the table laden with delicacies, Violet immediately brightened. Thank you, Miss Anna. Looking at the table for a moment, Violet thought, but which of these things are meant for outside? If I get it wrong, Anna will notice immediately. Anna stood behind her, thinking, I'm here to supervise and teach the Duchess, just as the Duke instructed. She remembered Barris's words from August. I'll bring a woman here. She only needs to bear an heir. Anna thought, there's not much point in teaching her when she's only here for an heir. As Anna checked Violet's bed sheets, she reflected on yesterday and today. There wasn't anything to be concerned about. The blood on the blanket was animal blood. Violet had been confused, wondering if he could tell the difference between human blood and animal blood. He thought he should show the animal blood to the other servants to prevent rumors from spreading that the two hadn't consummated their marriage. Is he really this considerate? Is this really that aloof Duke? Lost in thought, she wondered if he had gone mad. Nevertheless, the Duchess seemed impressed by the Duke's actions. Perhaps it was simply because they represented the hope of the North. But what could stop his rage? As she pondered, she heard a call. Anna. Yes. Violet asked, since I've been away for a while, is there anything I don't know about? Anna was startled by this. Hadn't he left the territory? Didn't he just want to take a walk? Violet replied, I'll follow. Am I not free in the office? Violet thought. Varas, deep in thought, felt a headache coming on. He held his head in his hands, dark circles under his eyes, his head feeling as if it might freeze. I need a reason to lock her up. Of course, I've tried imprisoning her without reason, but it's a bit. It seems like I'm treating her like an object. I brought her here for a legitimate reason. I know I'm being a bit hypocritical, but I need a reason. Remembering Violet's smile, I don't want to do that to her. Varas stood up and walked toward the window. What was happening? Looking out the window, Varas seemed to notice something. It was Violet and Anna down below. What were they doing? Seeing the direction they were headed, Varas was taken aback. Wait, following their figures with his eyes, they were heading towards the back of the castle. A sudden thought struck Varas. Why would she want to run away? As long as Anna was with her, Violet couldn't do that. But what if she distracted Anna in a crowded place? After a moment of contemplation, Varas quickly rushed towards the door. I have to follow them. Violet was happily admiring her surroundings. The scenery here is so beautiful. I don't know much about the history of this place, but it seems lively. She sat down beside a small fountain. This feels like an adventure. I never went to places like this in Enoch. Violet thought, thinking back, I don't think the original plot is going to be much help. Unlike in a story, Varas is kind of nice. She recalled the scene from yesterday when Varas had offered her his hand. Take my hand. Remembering the romantic scene of them holding hands, Violet's face flushed crimson, covering her burning cheeks. She thought, who would know I've never been in love? At this moment, Varas and I, could we be falling in love? But suddenly, she remembered the look in Barris's eyes. Violet paused, her expression turning somewhat somber. Wait, stop with these ridiculous daydreams. I can't move freely without supervision, and his perspective won't change. I still want to maintain a good relationship with Varas. He's always been like an older brother to me. She looked at Anna, gesturing for her to sit beside her. Why are you just standing? Come sit with me. Anna replied, Oh, all right, thank you. Seeing Anna's expression, Violet was a little puzzled. It turned out Anna was worried about Varas. She noticed him standing at the end of a small alleyway. A few minutes earlier, Varas had been hurriedly searching for Violet. Where could she be? She wouldn't leave the estate, would she? August, holding a stack of documents, accidentally bumped into Varas. Hey, Your Grace, why are you in such a hurry? Varas ignored him, thinking, why does it feel like she's trying to escape from me? Varas rushed out the door. I don't want to lock her up and throw her on the bed. By the time Varas arrived, Anna and Violet were already at the main gate of the estate. Violet looked incredibly happy, admiring the surrounding scenery. What wonderful weather. Varas, in his haste, saw Violet's expression and stood there silently. The image of Anna, cold-blooded on the battlefield, countless bodies lying at her feet, flashed through his mind. Father, Violet is just an ordinary person. No one can escape Anna's eyes. She's the highest-ranking knight of the Empire. Varas felt confused. Why was I so worried? Anna noticed Varas behind them. When Varas realized he'd been seen, he gestured for her to continue, to ignore him. I can see everything that's happening from this distance. It should be fine. Seeing Varas like this, Anna felt reassured. With Varas's permission, the two strolled around the capital together. Varas watched from behind a wall. If she tries to escape, I'll quickly chase after her and catch her. I need a legitimate reason, so this is a good opportunity, or I can find some fault. But Violet and Anna sat by that fountain from dawn till dusk. Varas was bewildered. What's going on? How can they sit like that without getting tired? He had been watching them both since early morning. Even now, Varas continued to ponder. If it's just sitting outside like this, why bother coming out at all? Is she assessing the opportunity to escape? Should I go back? The thought of August doing all the work struck him. I inadvertently let August handle everything today. Thinking this, Varas emerged from the alleyway. A commoner recognized him and immediately bowed. Greetings, Duke Varas. Varas noticed the man clutching his hat tightly, his whole body trembling. Seeing this, Varas silently turned and walked away. I know what you're thinking. Varas walked, his thoughts a tangled mess. A murderer, said to be more terrifying than a demon, was her husband. Even if she felt safe, seeing him lurking behind her would surely frighten her. He took a step towards Violet. Regardless, the most important thing right now was not to lose her. From behind, Varas saw Violet smile. Witnessing this, even he, the man considered a cold-blooded demon, smiled. Back at their chambers, Violet took a bath. This feels so good. I went for a walk and now I've had a bath. A nice dinner would make this perfect. As she was drying her hair, there was a knock at the door. Come in, Violet called out. Assuming it was Anna, Violet said, I'd like a robe, please. But when she saw Varas walk in, Violet froze, startled. Her face instantly flushed crimson. She covered herself, letting out a sudden cry of surprise. Varas, equally surprised, fell silent at the sight of her. Then, in her shock, Violet slammed the door shut. Witnessing this, Varas lowered his head, looking dejected. Standing before the closed door, he thought, isn't this the time for bathing, eating, and resting? The air around him suddenly turned gloomy. She already didn't like me, and now she probably hates me even more. This is so embarrassing. Anna approached from behind and asked, Your Grace. Anna pushed the food cart closer. What happened in the room? Inside, Violet sat on the floor, feeling as though she were going mad. I thought it was Anna. Violet imagined Varas locking her in a metal cage. Not her, but she tried to prevent that from happening. What if he still did that? When Varas entered again, he found Violet kneeling on the floor, pleading, Please give me another chance. Varas, unconsciously stepping inside, asked, Another chance for what? Before Violet could answer, Varas quickly draped his cloak around her. Put this on. You'll catch a cold. Violet held the cloak, looking bewildered. A blush crept up her cheeks. Thank you. You're so kind to me. Hearing this, Varas was shocked, as if struck by lightning. Kind? Me? Kind? He quickly adjusted his expression. Ah, it must be because I did something she liked that she said that. Well, Varas said, it wasn't difficult. Feeling a little shy, Varas turned his face away. I'll leave you to change. Let me know when you're ready, and we'll have dinner together. Violet blushed, surprised. Together? A while later, the two sat before a lavishly prepared dinner. Is this our first time eating together? I don't remember this in the original storyline. Violet pondered the plot as she ate. Is he waiting for me to make a mistake? Unlike Violet, Varas, sitting opposite her, looked intimidating. He didn't seem to dislike her, just unskilled at expressing himself. Violet noticed that Varas remained silent, not touching his food. So, she smiled curiously. Seeing Violet's smile, Varas blushed, his heart quickening. Varas gripped his fork tightly. What is with this woman? No one would act like that. How can she touch people so casually? Is she trying to push me away? Varas reached for a gift. Or is it just me who finds this strange? After a pause, he offered the gift box to Violet. Violet reached for the present. What's this? Can I open it? Go ahead, Varas replied. As Violet opened the box, a dazzling light shimmered from within. Inside was a beautiful necklace and a pair of earrings. Violet's eyes sparkled as she looked at Varas. Can I really keep this? Of course, Varas answered. Violet blushed, covering her mouth with her hand. Varas probably didn't think much of giving this to me. It was the first time she'd received a gift from a man. I don't understand what's going on around me, but Varas is being very kind. She smiled confidently. So many things were different from the original story. Could I build a good relationship with him too? Violet wondered, then looked at Varas. I think it's beautiful. Thank you so much. Seeing Violet's delight at the gift, Varas thought, it's a good thing I don't have any ulterior motives. But of course he did. There are more important things to consider. He'd informed the jewelers about the payment for the jewelry. If anyone tried to sell it, they'd recognize the 1,000 gold coins he'd mentioned. If they came directly to him, there would be an even greater reward. Then, I'll catch Violet trying to escape. It would be much easier when she made a move. All he had to do was make her the target. I won't hesitate to bring her back. The two held opposing thoughts. She would shed tears in the days to come. Meanwhile, Violet remained delighted with the first gift he'd ever given her. The next day, Violet and Anna continued their walks. Varas watched them from the window. A slight smile played on his lips. Haha, just as expected. All of Madame's debts can be repaid. I've already instructed Anna. Now I just need to wait. But then a thought struck Varas. Wait a minute. He quickly grabbed his cloak and left. August, seeing his haste, was slightly perplexed. He thought back on Barris's past. Orphaned at 9, due to the war, left behind in the war zone. 2 years later, his body a mangled mess. He'd returned after strangling his enemies. After recovering, he returned to the battlefield at 13. Until now, I've never seen him lose his temper. August sighed, but now he has. He watched Varas follow Violet. I'm glad spring has finally come for him. Congratulations. Violet and Anna stood before a fruit stall. Violet, laughing brightly, chatted with the vendor. Varas stood watching, thinking, what in the world is this woman doing? She only bought 2 apples, asked for roasted chicken, and a purse. For some reason, Varas was furious. He gripped the wall so tightly it cracked. These things she bought won't help her escape at all. Though Varas wore a cloak, the people around seemed to recognize him as the Duke. Be quiet, Varas thought, his face still flushed with anger. I can't hear them talking. When will you show your true colors? Watching Anna stop in front of a handbag shop, Varas thought, is it now? He saw Violet deep in thought. But in reality, she was simply choosing which handbag suited her. That can't be right. Varas thought, what did she possibly do with that small bag? Seeing the two move to another shop, he thought, she should be buying practical things, something that can help her carry a lot of weight on her shoulders. When Anna went to a shoe store, Varas thought, is it now? Yes, she needs to buy shoes she can run in, something light and practical. After standing in front of the shoe store for a moment, Violet decided against buying anything and moved on. As for Varas, his fury seemed to have reached its peak. Is she crazy? What did she even come out to buy? If she hasn't done it yet, if she knew about my past, she would definitely run away. Watching Violet share a skewer of roasted meat with Anna, he thought, why? Seeing Violet smile, Varas kept thinking, why? Why could someone smile so brightly? I'm definitely not letting her out of my sight, not even for a minute. I don't understand why she's smiling like that. Violet, meanwhile, continued to chat happily with Anna. What's making her smile like that? I really can't understand. Violet ate happily, exclaiming about how delicious the chicken was. Violet's eyes sparkled. It's amazing that I have so much money left after buying things. Just then, a sudden gust of wind swept through the streets. Violet shivered. Oh, it's cold. At that moment, she remembered Varas placing his cloak around her the previous day. Holding his hand felt so warm. It was the first time I felt like my weight wasn't a problem. Violet thought of Baras silently. Thinking back on it still makes me happy. In this world, Barris's loneliness is a given. But I'm lonely too, with only doom left. I can only protect myself. Is that why the two of us became a couple? Sometimes I feel like we could have a good relationship. No, I want a good relationship. Before she could finish her thought, the scene shifted back to Barris's mansion. Baras walked, lost in thought. It will be troublesome if she wants to go out again, but my actions yesterday. Suddenly, Barris's face was obscured. If something like yesterday happens again, although I don't hate it, Varas looked at the box in his hand, seemingly a gift for Violet. Lost in contemplation, Varas suddenly noticed Violet hiding behind a door. Seeing this, he quickly ducked behind a large pillar. Is she preparing to run away? Varas instantly moved to hide behind a statue. He then trailed Violet. A short distance away, Violet suddenly stopped, seemingly deep in thought. Observing from behind, Varas wondered, is she trying to give someone a slip? Or is she trying to get into a specific room? As Violet approached the door, Varas thought, damn it, that's my room. He became bewildered, glancing around. But suddenly, his attention was drawn to Violet's door. Varas froze for a moment. Then he ran towards the balcony. No, there's no way she can go in there without my permission. Varas immediately jumped from the living room balcony to his own. He hurried inside, removing his cloak as he went. Varas stood before the door, straightening his clothes slightly. Then he pushed the door open with a flourish, startling Violet. Leaning one hand against the door, Varas said, "Come in. Don't suffocate yourself." Violet, slightly bewildered, entered the room and sat down by the fireplace. She turned to look at Varas, who was standing by a pillar across the room. Noticing he seemed to be keeping his distance, Violet patted the space beside her, inviting him to sit. Varas hesitated for a moment, but eventually came over and sat beside her. Seeing him like this, Violet smiled, thinking he looked like a bear. Huh. Looking at Varas, she thought, I'm certain my heart has changed. He's so cute. Violet pulled an apple from her bag. I bought these because they look delicious today. Let's share. She handed one to Varas, keeping the other for herself. Without a second thought, Violet took a large bite. Varas simply watched her eat. Noticing Violet looking at him, Varas also took a bite. Seeing him do so, Violet suddenly burst out laughing. Varas was puzzled. Why is she laughing? Is the way I eat an apple that strange? Violet, still chuckling, said, Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh. But then she placed her half-eaten apple next to his. I didn't realize you could eat so much in one bite. The difference in our bites is huge. Varas's face flushed slightly. Everything about her was small, from the bite mark to her weight, her face, her hands. His blush deepened. What else? Suddenly, Varas placed his apple on the seat and stood up. Seemingly too embarrassed to stay, he turned to leave. I have a gift for you. Varas brought a gift box over to Violet. When she opened it, there was a pair of shoes inside. Delighted, Violet asked, Can I try them on now? Hearing this, Varas was silent for a moment. Violet seemed oblivious to her attire. Her dress, thick and heavy, made it difficult to lift the hem to try on shoes. Realizing she hadn't noticed, Varas quickly stepped forward. Let me help you. After a few moments of fumbling, Varas finally managed to get the shoes on Violet's feet. His face was red. She really is tiny. Meanwhile, Violet was focused on Varas. He really is big. With the shoes on, Varas looked up at her. Violet smiled brightly. Thank you. I really like them. Varas then asked gently, Do they fit well? He thought, what's with this woman? Why is she just smiling and not doing anything? Violet blushed, but tried to control her emotions. Calm down, me. He pictured Violet walking through the fields. She had comfortable shoes now, so she would run away, wouldn't she? Varas stood silently in the blizzard as Violet ran, but running in the frigid northern weather, a climate she hadn't yet acclimated to. Did that mean she hated him more than death? Varas stood watching Violet holding the apple. She smiled like that, but she would still run away, wouldn't she? Violet turned to Varas, her face alight. Let's go together. Varas, whose expression had been forbidding just a moment before, now readily replied, All right. He sat beside Violet, but unlike before, this time he sat closer. Varas watched Violet. What is this? What does she want from me? Why does she keep looking at me and smiling like that? Looking at Violet's smile, countless questions flooded Varas's mind. Could it be she wants to stay here tonight? After a moment of contemplation, Varas turned to Violet and asked, You should be going now, shouldn't you? After Violet left, Varas stood by the window, watching her go. Varas, what's wrong with you? He looked at the moonlight streaming in. If I treat her like this, she'll run away. But if she runs away, Varas closed the window. It seems I can't control myself. Just as he was about to change his clothes, Varas suddenly noticed something on the chair. She's gone, and these are... Varas picked it up. It was Violet's robe. I don't even know what I want from this woman anymore. Back in her room, Violet, unable to think straight, leaned against the door. Her head swam. This is the Demon Duke, right? She began to pace her room. Violet's intuition had to be correct. Varas had to be like he was in the original story. But why? Why is this happening? It had been 3 nights, and the main plot hadn't even begun. It was fine at first. It seemed like they were considering postponing the confinement. But after just a day or two, I'm starting to feel anxious again. Violet was sweating profusely. Something is really wrong. It feels like something is off. Violet pictured the two of them together, but the original story didn't clearly depict Violet's character. Although it was a book, was the original Violet also vague like the heroines and heroes? So the things he did couldn't move her heart? Violet collapsed onto the floor, utterly distraught. I can't be like the original or the spirit. She recalled the time they sat together, thinking today might end with the same atmosphere. They were so close, almost kissing. When Varas said, "You should be going now," his body stiffened. Violet sat on the floor, crying. I really wanted to do those things. She thought back to Varas. Did he really not feel anything? I really wanted to hug, kiss, even just hold hands. Violet covered her face with her hands. She couldn't understand. As she cried, she suddenly noticed the shoes Varas had given her. Violet looked at them, thinking, I really like the gift, but in Enoch, they say if someone you love gives you shoes, it means they want to kick you out of their life. She looked at the shoes tearfully. Does this gift have the same meaning? I guess he feels uncomfortable with me around, so he wants to send me away, right? The next morning, someone called out loudly. It was August calling for Varas. Your Highness, we found a young man yesterday. But as soon as he entered, the first thing he saw was Varas sitting in a chair, looking displeased. What's wrong with him today? Seeing the Duke's expression, August sighed and said, he's from a village in the southwest called Devorti. Varas, startled by this, said, he came here looking for his missing fiancée, Violet. They weren't officially engaged, but he's certain they had a promise. As August spoke, he thought, I thought spring had finally arrived for the Duke. But Varas said, August, has the ground been disturbed at all these past few days? Hearing this, August was bewildered. Is he planning to bury her? August replied, yes, it seems spring arrived about a month ago. Varas mused, I kept thinking, if she's beautiful in my eyes, she must be beautiful in other men's eyes as well. So, it's my fault for being late in finding her. Beauty can be a sin. Varas rose from his chair. So where is he? He's locked up in the prison. Varas smiled. He must have a deep love to come all this way. Let's see what his face looks like. A short while ago, someone was hanging laundry in the back. A man leading a horse walked forward. The man turned and said, did you hear? Miss Violet got married. The red-haired man with the horse was startled. What did you say? She married who? The other man thought for a moment. I think it was some very rich duke far up north. He continued hanging the laundry. To be honest, she didn't seem like she belonged in this countryside. After all, a pretty face is an advantage. The other man replied, that's true. But living a luxurious life, wearing expensive clothes, admiring beautiful flowers, enjoying tea and snacks, those things do suit her today. But is that enough for her? Is she truly happy? I'm just a commoner. I don't know anything about power and money. The red-haired man exclaimed angrily, hey, be more specific. I don't know much about it either. I want to see her again. You don't know the exact place, but I can't forget her face. I'll find her soon, I will. But when you got there, you were stopped by a group of men. You have to come with us. You were beaten by those men and then thrown into prison. You stood up angrily and shouted, who are you? What do you want? Varas just looked at him in silence for a moment. You spoke. Begin immediately. Hearing the command, everyone stepped forward and held him down. What? Please don't do this. They held a vial of liquid, intending to pour it into the young man's mouth. Let me go. Varas just watched silently as he collapsed to the ground. Varas said, a village in the southwest, you and a woman named Violet, you were lovers? The man's face was haggard, as if devoid of life. All he could think of was Violet's image. Beautiful Violet, I want to live for her. I prepared so much for our future and our children. He began to speak. Violet and I are eternal lovers. We made a promise to each other. Beside him, Varas burned with a furious rage. Varas stormed off, August trailing behind him, thinking, I thought spring had finally arrived for the Duke, but it seems it's still winter. The drug the red-haired man had been given was called abalone, a substance that could control a person and force them to speak only the truth, unless they possessed an iron will capable of resistance. Every word they uttered would be 100% true. August struggled to keep up with Varas. Even if they are enemy prisoners, redemption isn't here. What I need to do now is prevent those two from meeting. August clenched his fists. I can do this. Just as he thought this, a voice called out, August. Yes, your highness. Call off the guards on the ramparts. Varas continued. Give him a chance to escape. Let him escape from the roof of the inner courtyard. At that moment, Violet was strolling in the garden with Anna. Violet looked at the surrounding scenery. Oh, butterflies. They look like they're trying to get over the fence. Violet turned to Anna. I know, it's funny, kind of like me. I've been tossed around by different circumstances since I was born, growing up too fast, always having to survive in new environments. Violet thought to herself, don't give up, butterflies. You can do it. We can all find happiness. Just then, she noticed someone. It was Varas. Seeing Violet looking at him, Varas froze. It felt like she just glanced at me. It must be my imagination. What an interesting woman. Time flew by just watching her back. In fact, Varas had been watching her for 2 hours. Everyone who saw her would think, if she hadn't been sold to someone who wasn't even like a father, she should have spent her time with that last man. If she had grown up in an aristocratic family, she might be married with children by now. I wonder what kind of face she would make upon meeting a hypocrite. At this moment, Varas looked as if he were engulfed in flames. Your face is filled with rage. The mere thought of it makes me feel irritated. I feel like cutting down all that trash. You see Violet walking towards you. What if I kill him in front of her? What if I help her never have to see anything like this again? If anything could change, Violet approached with a bright smile. Varas felt like the energy emanating from the two of them was like opposing forces. She must have completely forgotten by now. So, I'm going to break his pelvis and grind his flesh to feed to the beasts. Violet lifted her skirt, revealing her shoes. Why do you keep looking at me like that? Varas's eyes were filled with fury. But upon seeing Violet like that, the anger disappeared and his face flushed. Violet said, these are the shoes you bought me. Varas thought, to be honest, although I don't know much about fashion, this dress and these shoes don't suit her at all. He asked, are they comfortable? Violet smiled. Yes, they're very comfortable to move around in, and they're pretty. Varas continued to overthink everything. Just being comfortable to move in isn't enough. If she were to run at full speed, these shoes aren't suitable for escaping from here. But suddenly, Violet continued, I have a small request. Could you take a walk with me today? Varas, who had expected Violet to report an escape, was surprised to hear this. He replied, where do you want to go? Violet thought for a moment. Anywhere is fine. I think it would be better to just wander around, as long as we're together. She said, it doesn't matter where we go, I just thought it would be more fun to go somewhere together. Violet smiled at Varas. So, let's take a walk together. Varas was somewhat perplexed by Violet's suggestion. After a moment of silence, he spoke. Starting today, we'll be closing the mansion gates. Violet was startled by his words and looked confused. But before she could finish, Varas interrupted. You can only go into town within my jurisdiction. Hearing this, Violet clasped her hands together and looked at Varas with sparkling eyes. Varas continued, I'm only closing the gates temporarily because I have some business to attend to. A week at most. How about we go horseback, riding together after that? Violet brightened again. That would be wonderful. I'm really looking forward to that day. She thought. I was starting to think confinement had already begun. Varas smiled slyly. Asterisk, perhaps from today onwards, Violet will have to rely on me for the rest of her life. It doesn't matter. I never intended to share Violet with anyone anyway. Asterisk looking at Violet's smile. Asterisk, even if she's disappointed or even frustrated because of me, that little heart of hers won't allow itself to beat for anyone else. Especially not for some bastard who's still alive after witnessing him die. Asterisk Varas, his face momentarily contorted with a frightening expression, returned to his coy demeanor. Asterisk at the very least, I should set the mood. I've seen sights that shimmer like stars before. I think I should go to the Isabelle forest beyond the mountains, as it's famous for its beautifully shimmering sky. I bet she'd like that. Asterisk. Just as he was thinking this, Violet and Varas suddenly looked in the same direction. It was the red-haired young man who had escaped from prison and was now approaching where they stood. Seeing him, Violet thought, what is that thing flying up from the ground? Only I, Varas, Anna, and August are allowed to enter this area. Could it be a new servant? But then she dismissed the thought. Never mind, I shouldn't be curious about these things. She turned to Varas. But I don't know how to ride a horse. Varas said, what? You don't know how to ride a horse? Violet thought, What's so strange about not knowing how to ride a horse? Then it struck her. Are all the women in the world required to know how to ride a horse? What a ridiculous question. I've never even seen a horse run. The red-haired young man approached Violet and knelt before her. He cried out, I went through so much trouble. I tried everything to see you, and you won't even look at me. Seeing him, Violet thought, wait, isn't he a servant? Her mind raced with questions. Was this scene in the original story? I don't remember reading this. Is this because of the second reason or something? I don't know, but it's best not to get involved with him. Thinking this, she hid behind Varas. The other man, witnessing this, was utterly astonished. He couldn't comprehend what Violet was doing. You used to hold my hand so tightly, but now you're a married woman. You won't run back to hug me anymore. Say something. He seethed with anger, thinking, has everything changed just because of the distance between us? Could it really be like this? He shouted toward the pair, Hey, Violet! Violet, bewildered, clutched Barris's hand. Who is that? Varas replied, I heard he's the one you were engaged to back in your hometown. Violet's face was a mask of confusion. Huh, what? He promised to me? Hearing Violet's words, Varas finally allowed himself a small smile. I was wondering if she would betray me for her lover when she suddenly came behind me. But I don't care about that. She rejected him by hiding behind me, which means she chose me. Varas's mood shifted erratically. She seemed to have no interest in this man whatsoever. Seeing this, Varas immediately summoned his guards to take the man away. As he was dragged off, the young man continued to yell, Violet, is this the kind of person you are? I can't believe you chose to become like this. After he was gone, Violet slumped to the ground, a sense of unease washing over her. Honestly, if Varas knew about my past, if he locked me in a room and confronted me with that man, I'd be done for. Violet looked at Varas anxiously. Closing the mansion gates means he's testing me. Tears welled up in Violet's eyes. If that's really the case, she sat on the ground, weeping. Varas, seeing this, was taken aback. He sat down beside her. Wait, what's wrong? Violet replied, What was all that for? Varas looked into Violet's tear-filled eyes. A mistake? What did I do wrong? Could it be that she... But Violet's next words caught him completely off guard. Are you going to give me to him? Varas said, I never thought of that. Violet said, You're lying. She repeated, You're lying. Varas clenched his hands. Yes, that's a lie. I was planning to kill him in front of you. Seeing Violet like this, Varas was confused. Actually, he begged me to let him see you, even just once. Varas continued, but when I saw your expression, I hesitated. Her eyes held a mixture of sadness and anger. Before Varas could finish, Violet cried out, If they asked, you would let them eat? Huh? Wouldn't it be easier to just ignore the message and kick them out the gate? Varas struggled to explain. He said he was your lover, so... Violet interrupted. You actually believe that and let him see me here in the mansion? Someone we don't even know the identity of. Varas didn't know how to respond. I really didn't want to tell her this. He said, but I gave him a dose of a mysterious liquid. Violet gasped. What? Varas continued. It's something that makes it impossible to lie once you take it, and his story was very believable. Hearing this, Violet lowered her head. There must be something fishy going on here. Violet clutched her skirt. If he really is Violet's lover, then he and I are no different. She cried even harder. That means he doesn't care at all whether I see my lover again. Seeing Violet like this, Varas thought, why does she keep crying? She'll hurt herself. I'm starting to get a little worried. He poured himself another drink, slamming the glass down on the table. August leaned in. Sir, you've had quite a bit to drink, haven't you? Varas snapped. Shut up. Countless glasses and bottles were scattered around him. August watched Varas continue to drink. Oh dear, blinded by love. The fool doesn't even know he's fallen. The first day, Varas was worried, having heard the princess crying all day in her guest room. The second day, August thought, what kind of man lets his wife meet her ex-boyfriend? The third day, Varas paced back and forth in his room. At least sit down and have a drink. Stop pacing around. August sighed. Why is he being so negative? He just needs to show a positive side. August whispered in Varas's ear, the Duke hasn't done anything nice for Violet. Varas blushed, about to ask something but before Varas could speak, August continued, what if you sent her some soup to her room? Varas thought, I really didn't think of that. What he said to August, however, was different. Do you think I'm a servant? Despite scolding August, he eventually found himself standing before Violet's room with a bowl of soup. He could still hear her crying from outside. They said she hadn't eaten anything, but why had she been crying for days? It was strange that she was crying over this after meeting her ex-boyfriend. He would rather endure insults directed at him than hear that bastard's. And she was crying nonstop just because of him. Varas knocked. I hope she's crying because she's disappointed in me. Thinking this, Varas entered the room and offered the bowl to Violet. Eat something. When Violet saw Varas, she quickly covered her face with the blanket. Why are you here? Varas placed the soup on the table. She didn't go out. Violet tried to avoid him. So what? The mansion is closed anyway. Seeing Violet like this, Varas could only remain silent. Even if she's not afraid of me, it feels like she's hiding something. But now she can say whatever she wants without hesitation. Thinking this, Varas suddenly burst out laughing. Seeing him like this, Violet became angry. What is going on? She thought. If you have something to say, just say it. Why are you acting like this? If you're going to continue like this, why did you give me that favor in the first place? And why the shoes? Not to mention you let me hold your hand. Violet screamed internally. Not to mention you held me when I needed it. You're bad luck. You think I'm stupid enough not to know anything? Outwardly, Violet glared at Varas with a murderous look. Seeing this, Varas coughed to get Violet's attention, then said, I'll reopen the mansion gates, so promise me you two will ride horses together. Hearing this, Violet asked, when? Suddenly, a silence fell between the two. Varas said now. Violet was taken aback, confusion evident in her eyes. Varas was able to walk out of the room and around. She was walking down the hallway. What? She thought. No, is this for real? I cried like that, and he doesn't even ask if I'm okay? I wasn't expecting much, but the fact that he didn't even wipe my tears is really upsetting. Violet followed after Varas, fuming. You really don't care at all? Varas, who was picking out a headpiece, glanced back at Violet. Violet was angry, but in Varas's eyes, she looked radiant. Varas smiled. She can't even hide her feelings. This outfit really suits her. August approached, and, seeing the two with their backs to each other, silent, covered his face. Oh dear. Varas fell into thought. Town is a small town with no roads for trucks to pass. Violet said she can't ride a horse, but she might be lying. Besides, what could happen in this small town? The people who come here either hunt with bows and arrows or ride horses. I just need to have a good kid. They don't even need to care about each other's past. Asterisk. I think it was an idea to bring her here without knowing her past. If he knew, August would never have brought Violet here. As Varas led the horses, he thought, thank goodness he brought 2 horses for Violet. Violet, leading the white horse, thought, will it be a problem with all this luggage? She said, I think it might be too heavy for the horse if I ride it. Hearing this, Varas burst out laughing. He told Violet, it can carry 5 people like you. Don't worry. In Varas's eyes, Violet was like a small rabbit. What is this woman, who's brighter than a sugar cookie, talking about? Violet kept thinking, this is a big problem. The horse is much bigger than I thought. In Violet's eyes, the white horse was terrifying. I'm not sure I can ride this. What if I fall and die? She grabbed Varas's sleeve. Although slightly annoyed with him, it was hard to admit. She said, I don't think this is real. Violet told Varas, I can't ride a horse. Varas, smiling, was about to make a joke, but before he could say anything, Violet quickly added, I'm not kidding. Violet's face was full of worry. I really can't ride. Oh my God, I wasn't trying to joke with you at all. Seeing that she seemed to be serious, Varas said, then you can learn to ride first, and we can go together another day. Or you can ride with me, he added. Violet was startled. What? Violet's mind raced. Oh my God, ride together? Wow, what a brilliant idea. Giving me the green light like this. But why don't you pay attention to the crucial moment? Violet held on tight, her face flushing. Is this the push and pull I've heard about? But being pulled in close like this under these clothes is too much. Violet said, okay, then I'm ready. But what should I prepare? What should I do? After Varas brought the horse out, Violet slowly climbed onto the black horse. After some struggling, and with Varas's help, Violet was finally able to mount the horse. Varas said, make sure to hold the reins tightly and put your feet in the stirrups. I understand. Violet stared straight ahead, her face getting redder and redder as Varas quickly climbed up behind her. Varas reached around Violet, taking hold of the reins. We're going to move now. Violet still seemed shy. Just now she was thinking, so warm and safe. Is it because Varas is the most powerful leader in the country? Or because I'm the leader's wife? I was angry a moment ago, but now I don't think it's a big deal. Varas, like her, was also bewildered. Oh no, I didn't expect this situation. Sitting behind Violet is too close. What should I do now? Varas's face turned red. She smells so good. Why does she look so cute from the back? This little cutie. After all, the main problem is that both Violet and I are wearing pants specifically designed for horseback riding. How can there be anything between these thin layers of fabric? Varas's face grew redder and redder. Being this close front and back. Mind the position. Mind the position. August was loading the carriage when Anna approached and asked, "Why are you using the carriage today?" August explained, "The Grand Duke asked me to prepare the carriage to go to Isabelle." Anna continued to ask, "When?" "Tonight." Anna's face suddenly turned frightening. "There's really no plan to leave tonight, right?" August was startled. "What?" Seeing that August didn't understand her, Anna sighed, then said, "Let's leave tomorrow morning, preferably at dawn." August still seemed confused. Anna turned and walked away. "It's better this way for the Grand Duke and Grand Duchess," Anna thought. "This is why I'm not in a hurry to get married." August was now extremely confused. Should he believe the Grand Duke's indifference or the words of the night captain? Should he believe the Grand Duke or Anna? Hesitating, August remembered Anna's frightening expression. August decided to apologize to the Grand Duke. "I'll just pretend I didn't hear anything. Anna's words are better, right?" At another small gathering, Violet and Varas were sitting together. A few hours ago, Violet and Varas rode horses together, talking about what had happened the previous day. After the horseback riding, they eventually headed towards Isabelle, with Violet ending up in Varas's arms. They arrived at a beautiful little cabin. Upon arrival, Varas lifted Violet down from her horse. When they let go of each other, neither thought much of it, but afterward, they both seemed a little awkward. They conversed somewhat stiffly. "This house is beautiful. Shall we have a barbecue tonight?" That's how it happened, but now they were by the bonfire. Violet felt cold, so Varas covered her with his cloak. "I told them to be back before dinner, but it seems something came up." Violet smiled. "It's all right. It's cool and pleasant here." Seeing Violet like this, Varas blushed, thinking, "Good job, August." Varas asked Violet, "Would you like something to drink? It might warm you up." Violet happily agreed. "Yes, please." She remembered back in Enoch, her alcohol tolerance was quite high, easily handling 3 bottles of soju, so she guessed everything would be fine. Varas picked up a bottle of wine and asked, "Have you tried this?" Violet replied, "I don't like wine. It's a bit bitter." Varas's eyes sharpened. "If you don't like wine, how about whiskey?" Violet responded enthusiastically, "I love it." Violet then added, "This is my first time trying whiskey." Varas watched Violet drink in silence. He thought, Violet, I heard she's already tasted whiskey. Back home, they even said she loved wine from La Fawn, and that she enjoyed drinking because she couldn't hold her liquor, it being the weakest kind. Varas asked, "Would you like another glass?" Violet replied cheerfully, "Yes, please." "It's really good," Varas commented. "There are a lot of small animals around here." Violet immediately asked, "Insects and bugs?" Varas replied with a smile, "Maybe foxes and rabbits too. I prepared a bow and arrow for hunting. If you'd like, would you like to go hunting?" Having said that, Varas quietly waited for her response. But Violet was lost in thought, wondering if this was the moment for a kiss. Only up to third base, but Violet seemed to be drunk already. The special situation and the cozy atmosphere. It's really different from before. I don't want to lose my first kiss while drunk, but I'm not complaining either. Violet suddenly jumped up. Hunting, but it wasn't long before she lost her balance. I used to die a lot, so it wasn't long before she leaned against me, but luckily Varas caught her as she fell. Violet immediately passed out. Varas thought, she really can't hold her liquor well, can she? In any case, this place isn't suitable. Since the wedding ceremony and the week after, they haven't been together. I don't know who, why, or how, but Violet has really changed. She's definitely a witch. Maybe not quite, but sometimes I feel like I'm just an accessory. Varas slowly carried Violet inside. He always gave her a cloak. If this woman is a witch, then who is the real Violet? Varas wondered if it might be possible to go and find her. Lost in thought, he heard Violet murmur, "So cold," looking at the petite Violet in his arms. Varas blushed. Violet was wearing his coat and was even in his arms. What was this feeling the moment he realized the truth? This woman is definitely a witch. I don't know what she's done to me, but I think I shouldn't do anything right now. It was already morning, but Varas's posture hadn't changed. By the looks of it, he seemed to have stayed up all night. What if this woman really is a witch? A witch with supreme magic could overthrow the emperor. For an ordinary person like me, that would be a huge problem. Will I be devoured? Look, Violet seems to be waking up, so I have to figure out which is the real Violet. Hearing a noise outside, Varas thought, August, you're finally here. A moment later, Violet woke up to find herself in bed. She sat up and looked around. Violet was surprised. Did I wake up too late? Where's Varas? He wouldn't have left me, would he? Violet stood up and slowly walked out of the house, searching for all the witches and priests of the north. It seemed she had overheard someone's conversation. It turned out Varas and August had been talking before and after my wedding. August asked why. Suddenly, Varas's expression turned dangerous. I thought Violet was switched on the wedding day. Violet, hiding around the corner, was startled to hear this. He must find the real Violet. August said, nothing like that happened at the mansion. Varas continued, or maybe it was a soul swap, not a body. If he could find the witches or priests of the north now, it might be easier to find a real Violet. Violet, peeking from behind August, was discovered. My lady, you're here. Now that she had been found, Varas immediately came out. Varas introduced them. This is August. You'll be seeing him often from now on, so remember his face. August said, we first met at the stables yesterday, right? I was really looking forward to your performance. Violet stepped forward. It's a pleasure to meet you. I wish you all the best. It was unclear what the two were thinking, but August immediately turned to look at Varas. August and Violet had met before in their hometown. After the wedding, it was August who brought her here. They'd also had a few brief conversations in the city, but now she acted as if she had never seen him before. There was no need to dwell on this any longer. After a while, the three of them got into the carriage to return. Violet sat to one side, incredibly anxious, thinking that everything was ruined this time. August's reaction earlier. I think Varas actually knows about August. Violet was extremely worried. Will I be punished for impersonating the Grand Duchess? Honestly, if a woman's personality changed, if he misunderstood me as a spy who infiltrated to gather intelligence, I'm definitely done for. Will I be tortured or executed in public? He's the type to bring the person who was thought to be my ex-boyfriend in front of me. After all this, will they no longer respect me? Thinking of this, Violet started to cry. It's really hard to maintain a marriage when you only share so little in your daily life. Violet shook her head. No, even if I have to enter the tiger's den, even if there's no way out, there must be a way to survive. Violet's eyes were filled with determination. All I can think about is their behavior. Varas, sitting next to her, was thinking. He saw Violet praying with her hands clasped together and thought, I thought all witches were the same, but maybe this case is different. He smiled. Anyway, this is quite interesting. Suddenly, a crow landed on the carriage for a moment and then flew off somewhere. It flew into the hand of a long-haired man. Good. Behind him, a cloaked figure asked, what is the situation? He turned around and said, a little. The cloaked figure continued, I hope she can complete the mission. You didn't do anything else, did you? The long-haired man said. Hearing this, the cloaked figure became angry. Do you think I said that because I wasn't sure? But before the cloaked figure could finish speaking, someone approached from behind. A bit hurt, but stay calm. Huang Yul, and I will be careful. That person put a cloak on another cloaked figure. It's a bit cold, Huangin. The long-haired man also ordered the crow to continue flying somewhere. First, I'll pretend I don't know. It'll be bad if she realizes and runs away. There will be no chance to swap souls then. There's no way to find a soul detached from a body and return it to its original body. The strategy of preventing escape and torture might have to be abandoned. You watch Violet. I don't understand why you accepted me, but don't even think about running away until I find a way to swap souls. There's no choice but to cooperate until the goal is achieved. I wonder why, though. The original Violet was indeed a beautiful woman. However, Varas thought of her smile again. If that soul doesn't look at me, only at herself. Varas's gaze sharpened. No matter what, I have to say something. But how should I do it? Suddenly, Violet flinched, as if something had come to mind. Should I try to find a real Violet, she thought, or let Varas know that his wife's soul has been swapped? If I do that, will everything go smoothly afterward? The two were thinking about different things, but ultimately came to the same conclusion. Surely everything will go according to plan. Violet looked out the window, then asked Varas, the direction to the city seems a little different, doesn't it? Varas replied, that's because a horse's route and a carriage's route are different. It might take a little longer, but not too much. Varas continued to keep a close eye on Violet's every move. Violet asked, are you hungry? Varas remained silent, not answering. Seeing him like this, Violet continued, it seems like you haven't had breakfast yet, right? I was wondering if you were hungry. Varas took a bag from August. We still have a little further to go before we reach the city center. He handed Violet some food. At least eat this. Violet smiled. Not me, you. Varas was a little surprised to hear this. but then he replied coldly, "I'm fine." After riding in the carriage for a while, the three finally arrived at the bustling community. Violet was amazed by the vibrancy and hustle of the place. As they rode, Violet kept looking out the window. It felt completely different from the square, like a place where fairies lived. Seeing Violet's excitement, Varas thought, "She looks like she's seeing a community where people live for the first time. If she were a witch who lived alone in a valley, it would all make sense." Violet's face, so eager a moment ago, now became incredibly anxious. Why is he staring at me like that? It feels like he's thinking I'm an imposter. I need to find something to talk about. Violet stammered, "Since the carriage ride is so long, I hope you're not in any pain. Won't the horse be in pain running like this?" As soon as she said it, Violet immediately regretted it, thinking, "What am I saying? I shouldn't have let the atmosphere become like this." After a while, the carriage stopped. August said, "We've arrived at the place you mentioned." Violet breathed a sigh of relief, grateful to finally be there, but she didn't notice that Varas had already gotten off the carriage. Where's he going? Violet thought. Don't tell me Varas got off to take care of some business, and I have to go back to the city alone. But contrary to her imagination, after getting off, Varas extended his hand towards her. "Let's get off." Violet blushed, her eyes sparkling as she looked at Varas's hand. Varas's face also couldn't hide his shyness. Taking Varas's hand, Violet got off the carriage. Varas said, "We'll be hungry if we go straight to the city, so let's stay at my shop for a while." But after a moment, Varas let go of her hand, thinking, "Why did I let go?" Violet looked at Varas, seemingly a little displeased. Then, with her small hand, she reached for Varas's hand, grasping two of his fingers. Seeing this, Varas blushed shyly. Violet walked beside him. "What am I doing? It feels like we're on a date, like lovers." After walking for a while, the two arrived at a high-class restaurant. Countless dishes were laid out on the table. Violet ate happily, thinking the soup, the bread, even the main dish are all delicious. Glancing at Varas, but his gaze is making me feel pressured. She felt a pang of sadness. He spent all night with me at the cabin, and now he's treating me to such delicious food. Violet silently shed tears. Now that they were closer, deceiving him felt truly awful. Violet thought about the future, but no matter what, she had to survive. Take good care of yourself, she thought. Amnesia. I'm Violet with amnesia. I lost my memory. Finally, Violet spoke. "I have a question. What is our relationship?" Varas froze, startled by the question. Violet coughed, then continued. "You can come in my room at night, and you give me gifts. And the location of the bedroom, too. I've been thinking we're like a married couple, right? Am I right?" Varas's hand trembled slightly at her words, but he said nothing. Violet looked at Varas with sparkling eyes. "But why aren't we a couple?" At this, Varas promptly sprayed the water he was drinking. Violet feigned innocence, her eyes blinking at him. Varas wiped his mouth with a handkerchief. "Perhaps I need to explain the meaning of that story a bit further." Violet thought for a moment. "I'm sorry if I startled you," she said, then added, "It's just that I feel like I'm losing my memory." Varas simply remained silent at this. If she's discovered to be a witch, I won't be able to achieve my goal, he thought. I was going to make some excuses, but whatever it is, it has to be consistent. "You tell Violet, first, we are a married couple. I'll give her anything she wants." The question startled Violet, and she recalled something. I'm not sure, but that night, you drew the curtains and made me sleep," she stammered. Varas simply lifted his teacup and drank. Violet continued. "The next day, you went out for a while and came back. You put enough blood on the sheets. It seems you don't remember anything before that, right?" Varas said. Violet nodded. "That was the day we had our wedding ceremony," he continued. Violet feigned surprise at this. "You're wondering why we haven't consummated our marriage yet, right?" Varas continued. "We had an arranged marriage," he explained. Thinking about how to act in this situation, Violet asked, "An arranged marriage?" "Perhaps because we weren't used to each other. So we decided to wait 10 days after the wedding. Of course, you wouldn't remember, but tomorrow is the 10th day." Violet was utterly shocked at his words. This is bad, she thought. As she returned to the carriage, she thought, what kind of situation have I put myself in? Is my fate truly in my hands? Her face was pale. "I have to leave. I know the Grand Duke is a monster, but everything is a blatant lie. I can't say I know it's not true. What should I do? What should I do?" I thought I had passed a turning point, but it turned out to be an even bigger one. Varas just sat quietly, watching her. How could she so carelessly occupy a married woman's body? He thought, truly a witch. Careless in so many ways. Varas watched as Violet covered her face. Is it really that close? He clenched his fist. But I will never let her go. She doesn't understand anything, yet she brings up the matter of consummation. He recalled her words. Wait, we haven't consummated the marriage yet. Such a petite, beautiful, and cunning witch, he thought. Varas was consumed with rage. I will devour everything, leaving no trace. The next evening, Violet was in her room. Okay, everything is set, she muttered, clenching her fists. Let's drink and lie down. Although this is the worst way, she thought, I can't think of anything else, so I have no choice. I can only stall like this until I come up with a better plan. But where can I get alcohol? I don't know where the kitchen or the cellar is. Violet quietly slipped out the door. There's no other way. I have to hurry to the market and buy some alcohol. She pulled her cloak around her. I'm not running away. I'll be back, so it should be fine. Violet looked out the window, a worried expression on her face, hoping that one day they could understand each other better. As for Varas, he was in his own room, holding something in his hand, a terrifying expression on his face. I finally have what I wanted. In his hand, he held a bracelet, nearly impossible to acquire on the black market, capable of binding a soul to a body. It contained a dragon, capable of binding a soul and healing the wounds of the body, but due to its side effects, only madmen possessed it now. He looked at the box in his hand. Fatal side effects. That's the story of her dying before me. The owner of the bracelet, she will absolutely not die first, so it should be fine. Varas arrived at Violet's room, wondering why there was no sound. He knocked, thinking she might be asleep, hence the quiet. But even after knocking for a while, silence persisted. Anna approached from behind, growing worried as she saw the murderous aura emanating from the Grand Duke. Varas, his face contorted with rage, immediately locked down the north side. Violet was squeezed into the middle of the street. As she walked, someone suddenly grabbed her hand. It was the same man who had eavesdropped on Violet and Varas's conversation with the insects. He gave Violet a terrifying look, but then his demeanor changed, and he smiled. I'm sorry, I mistook you for someone else. With that, he turned and walked away. Violet thought, what a strange person. Meanwhile, Varas's soldiers were searching every corner of the streets. In the middle of the doiwu was Varas himself. He yelled, search everywhere. Standing in the middle of the darkened street, Varas thought, I'll search like this until dawn, and in the morning I'll have to rearrange the search network again. Varas rubbed his tired neck. No, but to run away just because she doesn't want to sleep together? She should have at least told me to wait a little longer. I've already waited 10 days. I can't wait any longer. He seethed with anger. If I catch her, I will not let her off easily. But as he was thinking, he suddenly noticed a familiar figure. That person was none other than Violet. Utterly astonished, Varas quickly rushed towards her. Grabbing Violet's hand, Varas thought, please let her soul still be in that body. Violet looked at Varas in confusion. She sighed. Goodness. Violet continued. What's wrong? You don't look well at all. Varas remained silent, staring at Violet's hand. Then he lowered his head and took Violet's arm, pressing it against his face. Varas thought, if I find her, I'll grab her and throw her into the room. I'm planning this very carefully. Violet blushed as Varas suddenly did this. Varas, what are you doing? Seeing that everything was resolved, August told the soldiers, everyone disband. Disband quickly. He glanced at Varas, thinking that since his master had caught the Grand Duchess, hopefully he would restrain his frustration. Even though everything went according to his wishes, August looked back as he left. But why'd it have to be a witch? Seeing that everyone had left, Varas asked, what are you doing here? Violet was startled by the question. Her expression darkened, knowing she could no longer hide it. Violet said, I needed some alcohol tonight, so I went out to buy some. Varas was surprised. Alcohol. He looked at the flustered Violet. Just for alcohol. His heart burned with anxiety. Not to mention, he had spent a sleepless night in the forest because of the alcohol. Varas said, it seems you didn't drink enough last night. Violet was taken aback. I drank. Varas continued, but you didn't overdo it, so you don't have to worry too much. Violet looked distressed. I'm sorry. Varas said, it's all right. Violet covered her face in shame. I used to be a good drinker, and I never had any bad habits when drunk. But now my body has changed. I can't drink anymore, and I can't predict what will happen if I get drunk. And what should I do? Using the power of alcohol to delay the plan of sleeping together is impossible. Seeing Violet's confusion, Varas was silent for a moment, then suddenly sat down on the ground. Varas looked up and said, give me your foot. Violet was surprised. Her hind leg. She thought, don't tell me he wants me to put my leg on his lap. She asked again, my leg? Varas replied, Yes. Violet pouted. Varas continued to wait. She thought, there's no other way. Closing her eyes tightly, Violet slowly extended her leg. Suddenly, Varas swiftly grabbed it. Violet looked down in surprise. Varas had fastened the bracelet he had mentioned earlier onto her ankle. He smiled triumphantly, relieved now. Even if she tried to run away, he could find her. Varas imagined Violet kneeling on the ground, weeping. Even if she later begged him tearfully, he wouldn't take it off. Her foot was smaller than his hand. Violet asked Varas, "Is this the bracelet?" Looking down at her foot, she seemed pleased. "Thank you. I'll use it well." Varas looked at Violet. Beautiful. Such a clear and elegant sound. Violet suddenly remembered something and hesitated. The shoes last time, and now the bracelet. Could it be a foot fetish? With that thought, she looked at Varas. He smiled. "Let's go back." Violet happily agreed. "Okay." But before leaving, Violet asked, "Were my drunken habits really that bad?" Varas thought for a moment. "It was the first time in my life I've seen drunken habits like that. From now on, don't drink unless I'm with you." As Varas spoke, he recalled the distorted memory of Violet clinging to him, saying she was cold. Seeing Violet's crestfallen expression, Varas continued, "Remember, don't drink unless I'm with you." Violet replied, "Can I drink when you're with me?" Varas, not expecting that question, chuckled and then turned around. "As long as I'm here." Seeing this, Violet brightened. "Then shall we drink today?" Seeing Violet like this, Varas was at a loss, unsure of what to say. Back in her room, Violet sat alone at the table. Anyway, nothing happened yesterday. Violet recalled throwing herself onto the bed as soon as she returned. She had stayed in her bedroom all night. Violet dozed off at the table, remaining like that until morning. She thought, it's funny to say this, but the one who made such a fuss about avoiding sleeping together, why didn't he touch me? How could he leave without any regrets? Violet looked at herself in the mirror. Am I not attractive? No, that's not it. Objectively speaking, the female lead is pretty. She looks a little thin, maybe lacking vitality. I don't think she fits that strong, tough look. Violet began to imagine. Maybe I should be more lively and cute. An elegant lady. Violet pondered. Should I try that? Who knows? If I show some elegance, Violet's thoughts began to churn again. If I do that, will there be more souls? Varas flung open the balcony door and stepped out. Finally, he had dealt with all the piled up paperwork. That guy August, why does he have to pick on lunchtime? Please check the report. Must consider early morning training. Working hard like it's nighttime. He remembered August's words. The thought of August made Varas's head spin. It seems he's gotten bold lately. Varas looked around, wondering what Violet was doing now. Anna was in Violet's room. Varas thought, it seems it's almost lunchtime. If I'm lucky, I can sometimes hear laughter. Varas smiled. Not bad. In the dining room, Violet was eating. Anna asked, is it delicious? It's very delicious. Anna said, there's someone I wanted to introduce to you, so I brought her here. As she spoke, someone emerged from behind Anna. She stepped forward and introduced herself. I am Moseley, from the Viscount Orgat family, who have served the Grand Duke's family for generations. She smiled brightly. It's an honor to meet you. Anna explained. She's a pure and discerning person. I brought her here because I thought it would be wonderful if she could become your maid. Moseley said, I was originally chosen to be your maid, but a few months ago, I suddenly fell seriously ill and almost died. Violet was trying to withstand the aura emanating from Moseley. Fortunately, I met a good doctor and overcame the critical period. But because I had to recuperate for a while, I couldn't enter the castle on time. However, I really wanted to meet you, so I was wondering if you could still give me the maid position. Moseley moved closer to Violet. It's a pleasure to meet you. Violet thought, so that's how it is. Violet was startled. Wait, thinking back, she compared the image she had just imagined with Moseley and realized that the image of the elegant woman in her mind was remarkably similar to Moseley. Noticing this coincidence, Violet could only mentally apply glue. Anna remained silent, standing to the side. Watching the two of them, Anna thought, although her expression isn't great, she accepted without saying anything. What a relief. The Duchess hasn't asked for anything since coming to this castle. She's never expressed dissatisfaction with the simple food and plain clothes, nor has she requested to change anything in this old, dusty castle. At most, she just wanted to go out for a walk. Since then, she's only spent a small amount from the funds. She never hides her true feelings and doesn't have any ulterior motives. Seeing Violet smile, it's hard to believe someone can be so innocent and pure. Anna thought of someone. Perhaps by tomorrow at the latest, the queen will reach out. The Grand Duke thought they were married in secret, so he only wrote a report to the emperor. But the queen controls the emperor, so it's impossible she doesn't know. As the most noble woman in the empire, the queen lives a life where she doesn't need to hide her feelings. But an illegitimate child quickly rose to nobility and became the wife of her only brother. Thinking about this, Anna felt somewhat perplexed. She sighed, thinking, even if he's the most precious person in the world. Anna continued thinking about the queen. She's not someone who knows how to care for others or say nice things. While she wouldn't bully or dismiss anyone if displeased, no matter what she hears, that naive woman, I hope she won't get hurt. Moseley said to Violet, would you like some tea after your meal? Sure. Seeing Violet's expression, Anna couldn't hide her worry. I'm too worried about her. Seeing Violet agree, Moseley immediately stepped forward to pour her some tea. Moseley asked, Duchess, is it to your liking? Violet, still somewhat dazed, thought, she's so refreshing and lovely. Moseley said, thank goodness. I've been practicing diligently. Violet wondered why she felt so dejected, so dazzling. She really suits Varas. As soon as Varas was mentioned, he appeared, walking up from behind. Varas didn't say anything and sat down opposite Violet. Violet was still focused on Moseley, who seemed to become frightened after Varas appeared. Moseley's hands trembled as she poured the tea. Violet thought, she's trembling. I understand. If such a handsome man were in front of me, of course I'd tremble too. Just like her, I feel like an idiot. Violet clutched her skirt tightly. Acting elegant doesn't mean one's true nature changes. Varas noticed Violet's expression, and he immediately called Moseley over. As Moseley approached, Varas gestured that she could leave. Taking the opportunity, Moseley quickly scurried away. Just as she reached the door, Moseley slumped against the wall. She whimpered, truly, truly terrifying. She almost burst into tears. She recalled trembling while holding the teapot. She had been so nervous that her hand shook. The fear of being penalized for making a mistake made her tremble even more. Moseley thought of Violet. In contrast, the Duchess is truly amazing. She remained completely calm in front of the Grand Duke. In Moseley's mind, Violet was vastly different from reality. Moseley, the tea is really delicious. Moseley remembered the sparkle in Violet's eyes. The Duchess is truly incredible. She encouraged herself, I will do my best to become an excellent maid suitable for the Duchess. But in reality, Violet felt utterly dejected. Varas, noticing Violet, thought her expression changes so rapidly, impulsive and endearing. Violet also noticed Varas staring at her. Varas said, shall we have dinner together? What do you think? Violet agreed with a radiant smile. Yes. Seeing Violet's smile, Varas's heart quickened. He thought, perhaps I should suggest a walk and some champagne? I don't think she'll refuse. Violet was still lost in her thoughts. Pull yourself together. Am I jealous of Moseley because deep down I want all of Varas's attention? We're married. We spent 2 days and 1 night together. I've done my best. Now I want to spend more time with Varas. Violet stood before Varas. Could you take me for a walk outside the castle? Violet looked at Varas, awaiting his response. Varas, slightly surprised, was still lost in thought. Then Varas smiled. All right, for some reason. Hearing his answer made Violet blush. Varas walked over to Violet and bowed. Let's go. Okay. When she saw Varas extend his hand towards her, Violet felt shy. Without thinking, Violet took his hand. Outside the mansion, Violet walked hand in hand with Varas. Varas thought, indeed, the castle is too gloomy. It might not be suitable for her. Violet pointed at a building and asked, what is that building? Varas replied, that's a place occasionally used for receiving guests or holding banquets. It's empty now. Violet said, I see. Seeing her expression, Varas thought, is she trying to pull me towards that building? How much strength can a light woman like a rabbit have? Varas chuckled, but even a small force is enough to make someone waver. Not bad. The petite Violet was still trying to pull Varas along. That building is empty. If that's the case, then I'll have to thank the atmosphere and luck. She imagined the two of them kissing, wondering if she might get a kiss. Is this idea too much? For now, they just continued walking, unaware that someone was following them from behind. The person exuded a disturbing aura. Varas and Violet walked into a dark room. Violet, slightly scared, gripped Varas's hand tightly. It's certainly quiet in here. Violet looked around. Do you hear something? Varas said, puzzled. It sounds like Nephi. Violet asked fearfully, what's that? Varas replied, the female ghost who lives on the 4th floor of this building. Hearing this, Violet shrieked, why are you telling me this now? Varas asked, surprised, telling you what? You mean, Ghost stories. Varas continued calmly. I don't mind them. I didn't know anyone was afraid of ghosts. The woman stood upstairs, observing them. It seemed Varas saw her. She screamed in fright. She frantically grabbed Barris's hand. Let's get out of here. Hurry. All right. Violet pulled Varas out with all her might. Hurry, hurry, she thought. This is a world where dragons and magic are real. How could there not be ghosts? Looking at Barris's expression, Violet thought, I used to be terrified of ghosts. Back then, I brainwashed myself into believing they didn't exist. Now, Violet squeezed her eyes shut. There won't be any here either. But this is too much. I told him I'm afraid of ghosts, and he's so insensitive. Violet continued to pull Varas along. He doesn't care about me at all. It's so upsetting. Just as they stepped outside, they suddenly saw the castle gates wide open. A line of carriages was entering from the outskirts. Varas thought, who will be patrolling outside at this hour? Regardless, my men are a bit too diligent. The carriage stopped in front of Violet and Varas, and a beautiful woman stepped out. She said, It's been a while, little brother. A flicker of apprehension crossed Barris's face. It has been a while, sister. She glanced at Violet. I hear you're married now. Seeing his sister's pointed look towards Violet, Varas quickly stepped in front of her. Don't mind her. Barris's sister was silent for a moment. Then a smile that seemed almost dangerously sharp spread across her lips. A while later, Barris's sister entered his room. Varas approached from behind. Why are you here? There must be a reason for coming all the way to our parents' home. Varas continued. I doubt you'd come this far for no reason. I heard the news on the way. Are you looking for that witch? Varas was irritated. Nothing like that. Can you help me? No need. She began to speak about Violet. You and your wife seem to be getting along well. Varas, seeming to understand her implication, said coldly, Leave it alone. She said, We're family now. You have to get used to it. Just pretend she doesn't exist and live as you did before. Varas replied, What if we run into each other on the road and have a fight? You have to get to know each other to avoid arguments. Varas grew increasingly annoyed. Don't even think about such ridiculous things unless you want to turn the palace into a sea of fire. After Varas finished speaking, the two fell silent, glaring at each other. She continued, Even on the battlefield, it seems she's doing well. Varas was about to reach for something. Fortunately, at this moment, Varas was hurriedly moving around. All witches are like that. Arrogant, cunning, and unscrupulous. Varas clenched his fist. Can the imperial palace be controlled by demons so easily? What a nuisance. Varas thought, Speaking of which, are there witches who fear demons? Witches often treat demons as familiar acquaintances. Varas began to calculate. The clues to finding the real Violet were increasing. Witches rarely fear demons, and usually, when a witch occupies a body, the original owner's soul is either removed or imprisoned. An innocent, weak witch would have no reason to handle things so cruelly. Thinking of this, Varas became momentarily frantic. He laughed, thinking, I have to figure this out. Perhaps the original owner of this body will never return. The next morning, when Violet had just woken up, she thought groggily, I slept well. I wonder if Varas is awake. It would be nice if we could have breakfast together. Before she could think further, she saw Varas standing in her room, leaning against her bedside, gazing out the window. Seeing Varas, Violet immediately pulled the covers over her head. She thought, what do I do? Did he see everything? I just woke up. My face is still puffy, and my hair is a mess. Just imagining it makes me cringe. This is so embarrassing. Seeing Violet react this way to his presence, Varas immediately approached and said, I'm sorry. Varas's expression was slightly awkward. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to startle you. Violet peeked her head out from under the covers. What's going on so early? Varas stammered, Well, Varas thought, to be honest, there's a dangerous witch in Belia right now. Can I tell her that the witch is targeting her? Violet looked like a small rabbit nestled in her blankets. She seemed like a fragile rabbit, even afraid of ghosts. If she knew the truth, she might faint. My sister is different from other witches. If it's this woman, she might be taken down in an instant without even realizing it. I've already contacted the Empire to take the witch away. Be careful until then. He looked down at the soul thread. Until then, is there any reason to get involved? No, right? Violet suddenly startled, pulling the covers down from her face, looking a little frightened. I'm sorry. I was a little surprised. Seeing her reaction, Varas said, I didn't mean to frighten you, but you might already know. Neffy has gone missing since we went to the office yesterday. Perhaps she's taken a liking to you. Violet seemed bewildered at his words. Missing? What do you mean? taken a liking to me. Varas sat on the edge of the bed. There was a servant looking after Neffy, but they said she disappeared early this morning. Sometimes she targets lone women and possesses their bodies. Everything Varas had said so far was a lie. Violet, who was afraid of ghosts, immediately pulled the covers over her head upon hearing this. Varas asked, "What are you doing?" Violet replied from beneath the blankets, "Nothing. So I shouldn't be alone, right?" "That's right." Varas pointed towards the window. "There's something over there." At his words alone, Violet jumped and quickly grabbed Varas's arm. "Really? What is it?" Seeing Violet like this, Varas thought, if I play this right, perhaps we won't be separated tomorrow. He held Violet's hand. Suddenly, a voice came from outside. "Lady Violet, is that you?" Moseley, pushing a tea cart, approached. "I've come to help you get dressed." When Violet saw Moseley arrive, she immediately moved away from Varas. "Thank you, Moseley." Varas looked displeased at this. The atmosphere was far too pleasant, not at all romantic. How could she be made maid? Moseley, noticing Varas's darkened expression, trembled with fear. Varas thought, why is Violet so happy? If she weren't Ogoose's little sister, I would have replaced her long ago. Moseley continued to anxiously watch Varas's face. Moseley recalled Ogoose's words. "The key to survival. Listen carefully, little sister. If Master's mood seems bad, stay near the Grand Duchess. That's the only way to ensure your safety." A little confusing, she'd thought at the time, but I'll remember it, brother. After a pause, she moved closer to Violet. Seeing Moseley's expression, Violet asked, "What's wrong, Moseley?" Moseley, trembling with fear, clutched Violet's skirt. "I want to have breakfast together." As soon as Moseley finished speaking, Varas looked at her as if he would devour her. Hearing Moseley's words, Violet turned to Varas. "You'll wait, right?" Seeing Violet looking at him, Varas immediately replaced his dangerous glare with a sparkling gaze. "Of course." Seeing the situation unfold before her, Moseley understood her brother's words. As soon as she stepped out the door, Moseley leaned against it. Brother was absolutely right. She clasped her hands tightly. Beside the Grand Duchess was the safest place, and she had to protect it with her life. Now, Varas and Violet were strolling somewhere in the hallway. Violet walked, watching the butterflies flitting amongst the lush green branches alongside the hallway. "It's certainly much warmer than when I first arrived." She smiled brightly. "Spring is here." Seeing her like this, Varas approached and asked, "Is there something there? Why are you smiling?" When asked, Violet pointed to the white butterflies fluttering around. "There's a white butterfly over there. I feel like it's similar to me. It needs to find flowers to gather nectar, but there are no flowers here. No home, no one to care for it. When the wind blows, it gets blown off course, but it still remains resilient and brave." I thought of these things as I watched it fly around. Searching for flowers, Varas watched Violet, thinking that the way she spoke sounded as if she was certain she would leave this place one day. Did she mean that staying by his side was just a temporary stop? He grasped Violet's shoulders. "I can do that." He leaned closer to Violet. "A home that protects you and a caretaker. I can be that person." He looked at her with determined eyes. Hearing this, Violet remained silent, her flickering eyes fixed on Varas. "Whether it's flowers or anything else, if you say you need it, I will walk any thorny path." Varas thought this as he gazed at her quietly. Violet, confused, wondered with surprise, is he angry? Seeing Varas's continued silence, Violet wondered if what she'd said had sounded like a complaint, as if she were seeking his protection. Clenching her jaw, she thought, Anna clung to her skirt, and it took a long time for her to recover, but they still maintain a good relationship. "No, even if it's impossible, I still want to be a companion." Violet looked at Varas with flickering eyes. "Let's go out together." Seeing Violet's expression, Varas couldn't help but blush, but then he thought, I want to go, but I'm certain my sister is waiting for an opportunity. Out there, my slightly unhinged sister won't come here for no reason. Deep down, I want to lock Violet in a room and absolutely not let them meet. Seeing Varas still silent, Violet lowered her head. Why isn't he answering? Doesn't Varas want to go out with me? It would be so nice if we could go out together, eat delicious food, and have fun. But why isn't he answering? I wish he would answer quickly. Just say you'll go with me. Let's go together, please. Varas thought, I can tell what she's thinking. He sighed. Is there somewhere you want to go? Violet immediately grabbed Varas's hand. Let's go to the market, she said with a bright smile. Let's go to the market together and eat some snacks. Varas thought, even if she hears all the rumors and the truth about me later, she won't hold my hand and smile this brightly again. Will she? He placed his other hand over Violet's. There's something I need to tell you. The woman you met yesterday is my sister. Violet was startled. What? You have a sister? She thought. The rules didn't mention this. Violet recalled the moment she met the woman. And why didn't he introduce her yesterday? I've already become someone who doesn't consider her sister-in-law. Violet began to cry. My first impression was already terrible. Varas said, your memories haven't returned yet. Violet was startled again. Haven't returned? Varas comforted her. Don't worry, Violet replied. Okay. Just as they stepped out the door, a voice called out, look over there. It turned out Barris's sister had been waiting there. Seeing her, Violet was immediately delighted. This was a chance to change her first impression. Hello. But before Violet could say more, Varas stepped in front of her. Seeing this, his sister's expression turned unpleasant. Barris's expression was no different. Sensing the tense atmosphere, Violet said enthusiastically, hello, I'm Violet, the Violet who married Grand Duke Varas. I just heard you arrived, and it's a pleasure to meet you. I hope we can have a good relationship from now on. Barris's sister replied, aren't we trying to build a good relationship? Varas, I feel like you're the intruder here. She looked at Violet. It's a pleasure to meet you as well, Violet. How about we have dinner together tonight? Without giving Violet a chance to respond, Varas said with a frightening expression, no. Seeing this, Violet quickly grabbed Barris's hand. I'm sorry, but I already have plans with this person today. She clung tightly to his arm. How about tomorrow? Hearing Violet say this, Varas glanced at her. Varas's sister stood there, thinking, although he acts like he doesn't like it, he can't go against his wife's wishes. She then responded to Violet, that's a good idea. She thought to herself, I've met the right person. Varas Castle was originally built to prevent monsters from descending the perpetually snow-capped mountains in the north. As the frequency of monsters descending from the snowy mountains decreased, people began to gather near the castle. The Grand Duke allowed them to establish villages and provided assistance when needed. At that time, rumors spread that Barris's ruler treated the residents well, and people struggling to make a living from all over the empire flocked there. To sustain the exponentially growing population, quarrying operations were launched in the north. There were many magic or deposits formed from the remains of long-extinct dragons. Thus, mining proceeded without a hitch in Varas, also quickly accumulating wealth through byproducts like monster leather, soon became rich. 200 years later, the 27-year-old SR made her debut in the Imperial Palace at a somewhat awkward age. This, which from the north instantly captivated the attention of everyone in the Imperial Palace. Less than a year after her appearance, the commoners became duchy citizens, and the restrictions on tributes and military power vanished. Violet was reading about this local history. As she read, Maud Holly, who disliked someone, suddenly approached the Grand Duchess. Are you taking Stroll? Witnessing this, Violet questioned the person beside her. Maud Holly immediately introduced him. Remember what I told you a few days ago? This is the doctor who saved me from the brink of death. Such a remarkable person. The man bowed. It's an honor to meet you, Grand Duchess. He smiled at Violet. I hope you will take care of me. Seeing this, Violet could only respond in kind. She looked at him, thinking, this person looks familiar. Seeing Violet staring at him, the doctor asked, is there something you'd like to say? Startled, Violet said, no, nothing. I think I might have mistaken you for someone else. Maud Holly asked, Grand Duchess, what's next on the schedule? After noticing that the two of them were no longer paying attention to her, she observed that the man's expression seemed to change while talking to Violet. Suddenly, Maud Holly said in surprise, so, only you and the Grand Duke are going to the market? Violet smiled brightly. Yes. At that moment, Varas and Violet were walking to the market together. Violet seemed happy, humming a tune as she walked. Violet turned to Varas. Let's buy some snacks and go to the fountain. Varas looked at Violet, silently appreciating her smile. Varas thought, I should have anticipated what would happen following her. This might be the happiest moment. Varas looked at the crowded market. As they arrived, everyone was staring at Violet and Varas. Varas felt a pang of anxiety. I knew this would happen. I've experienced this for a long time, so it's normal. But for Violet, this hostile atmosphere might be disconcerting. I was too excited and ended up putting her through this. But contrary to what Varas thought, Violet was like a light dispelling the gloom around him. She turned and asked with a smile, snacks? What do you like to eat? Do you like apples? Varas remained silent at the question. He looked at the gazes of those around them and the whispers directed at him and Violet, and thought with a smile, I've just decided I do. Violet took Barris's hand. Let's go buy some apples first. Barris smiled, his heart filled with happiness. Unlike when she was talking to Barris, Violet's face looked angry. This is so frustrating. I'm not angry, but this is so lonely. Everyone there just now looked at Barris with fear in their eyes. In times of emergency, they fear the very person who would protect them. It's so. She gripped Barris's hand tightly. It's so lonely. The two sat together by the fountain, eating apples. But then Violet snatched Barris's apple. Wait a minute. She wiped Barris's apple with a cloth. Seeing this, Barris asked, "What are you doing?" Violet replied, "I'm cleaning the apple." Barris was a bit perplexed. What? But then he didn't mind, and just smiled. Violet saw Barris smile, so she smiled too. Violet thought he's smiling. She looked at Barris with a bright smile. After a long while, Violet handed the apple back to Barris, thinking this will make it taste better. She thought the amount of food one can eat in a day is already fixed. Violet said, "It'll taste better clean." Barris simply stared silently at the apple in his hand, which seemed to glow. He looked up at the blue sky and thought, perhaps this is happiness. They both brought their apples to their lips and took a bite. Violet kept glancing at Barris's expression. Violet thought, will this work? Yes, it has to be now. It can only be now. Barris noticed Violet's slightly strange expression. As Barris watched her, Violet winked at him. It was so unexpected that Barris spat out the apple he was eating. Violet patted him on the back. "Are you all right? I'll get some water." Barris thought, what did I just see? If it wasn't a hallucination, she definitely winked, right? I've seen my subordinates do that to women they like, and it always ends in failure. Doing that to me now? Barris turned to look at Violet, but Violet turned her head away. He had to confirm whether it was real or just a hallucination. Barris leaned closer to Violet. "What did you just do?" Violet was startled by the question. Violet thought, what should I do? Unable to hold it in any longer, Violet cried out, "My stomach hurts so much." Violet thought, wait, if I'm sick, will Barris take care of me? Violet, you're changing the subject. Oh no, it's not that. It's just that the apple was so delicious, I think my stomach hurts. Haha, that's it. Violet thought, I'm crazy, what did I just do? Judging by his reaction, he probably doesn't like that very much. Barris thought, I'm so stupid, I didn't understand what she was doing. How should I react? Even I find myself ridiculous. An awkward silence fell between them. Barris turned his face away, but still thought, kind of cute. Violet, thinking about Barris, mused but still cool. After returning, Violet went to take a bath. Soaking the tub, she thought, Barris, is he stupid? Even though I said I'd lead him, how can he keep up with such a fast pace? Can't he tell the difference between a wink and looking away? He must be trying to convince himself he didn't see me wink. Violet was now drowsy. I'm convinced he's too dense to tell the difference. I'm such a fool. I'm so tired. If he didn't notice, weren't all my efforts to be cute wasted? This is so bad. Violet sat sadly and silently in the bath. She thought, it usually preys on single women and tries to excessively upgrade its body. Remembering the escaped ghost, Violet abruptly jumped out of the bathtub in terror. Considering the decrease in the number of people coming and going, there were still 5 people who could easily enter this place. Some of Anna's servants only worked here and then went back. Now Anna was preparing dinner, and it was also time for Maud Holly to get off work. Barris was in his study holding his head, and Auguste almost never came here. Violet quickly got out of the bathtub. Am I alone? She opened the screen door in front of the bathroom. Without time to dress, Violet quickly threw on a robe and ran out, terrified. Barris warned me not to be alone. Did you forget, you idiot? You idiot. She quickly ran to Barris's room. Barris, please be in your room. After pausing to catch her breath, she opened the door and, upon entering, saw Barris taking off his shirt, preparing for a bath. Seeing Violet burst in so suddenly, Barris approached and asked. But as he got closer, he saw that Violet was crying. When she saw him, she cried even harder, startling Barris. Hey, don't cry, what's wrong? Violet didn't answer, continuing to cry. The two, Violet and Barris, sat by the fireplace. As they sat down, Violet leaned against Barris's shoulder. Suddenly, Barris noticed, wait, hold on. When he looked again, Barris seemed to notice her attire. With a serious expression, Barris asked, what's going on? Barris quickly turned his face away, but upon further reflection, her clothes didn't seem to fit quite right. There were no clothes at all under that robe. What is she wearing under that robe? If I ask such a crazy question, she'll definitely call me a pervert. I don't want to hear that. Barris sighed deeply. He turned to Violet. What are you doing? Violet replied, I was taking a bath. Varas appeared calm on the surface, but his mind was a whirlwind. A bath? A bath? Why did she come running out dressed like that? I also wanted to ask her why she was crying, and there's so many other questions. I don't want to ask these questions because I feel like she might leave. Varas simply remained silent, letting Violet lean against his shoulder. She looked truly exhausted. Varas looked at Violet. She must be tired from crying so much. I'll move the bed out of the way so I can sleep. He doesn't need to sit next to me. Varas asked, "Are you cold?" Violet wondered why Varas would say that. I thought so because you keep clutching that robe so tightly. At first, Violet didn't quite understand, but after a moment, it dawned on her. Violet's eyes widened as she remembered she wasn't wearing anything under the robe. I actually forgot. Am I crazy? Did Varas notice? What if he thinks I'm a weirdo? This is so wrong. Violet anxiously glanced at Varas. Did he notice? Varas simply stood up silently and went to add more wood to the fireplace. Violet breathed a sigh of relief. Thank goodness. It seems he didn't notice. But in truth, Varas had noticed a long time ago. Varas thought, what brought her here, wearing that smile? It truly hurts my heart to see her cry. If she smiles like that again, I want to make her cry, make her fear me. There couldn't be a stranger hobby. I can't be found out. Finally, the sun rose. Auguste came to Barris's room. Sir, Auguste thought, he's not responding again. Auguste opened the door, regarding the witch he mentioned last time. But as he entered the room, golden hair filled his vision. Auguste was shocked. Golden hair? As he stood there, lost in thought, the door suddenly slammed shut, knocking him to the floor. Auguste clutched his aching nose. It was strange. A murderous gaze pierced through the crack beneath the door. Seeing Barris, Auguste immediately reported, "It seems there's a witch in the north. The situation is dire now, as witches can sense if they've been discovered. We'll be in serious trouble soon, but we've maintained secrecy so far." Barris took Auguste's hand, turning it over and back. Overnight, Auguste had read through the contents of the document. Bandages. Among witches, very few desire a normal life. No, she wants to cover her decaying body and replace it with another. Indeed, if a body is the target, she surely has no intention of returning. Barris handed the document to Auguste. Find her. No matter how difficult, we must do this. A decaying body or a hidden family. I need to find something that could be a weakness. I'll do my best. If I can keep her by my side, no matter what happened in the past or what will happen in the future, if she wants to leave me, I will find a weakness to keep her. Auguste looked at Barris's face and thought, this is Barris's rage. It's still daytime. Hopefully, everything will be all right. Should I bring Madame to the inner city first? I must arrange a group of strong soldiers as commanders. If Anna cooperates with me, everything will be resolved. A look that seems like she would run away with just a slight push. I'm not sure I can absolutely protect him. However, if they can move the entire mansion. Auguste shuddered at the thought. If that really happens, it will surely be chaotic. Perhaps Madame is the Duke's brake pad, so I want to stay as close as possible. But first, we have to go down and pray. After Auguste left, Barris remained standing at the doorway. It seemed he was contemplating something of great importance. Violet was still fast asleep in Barris's bed. She slept without a care in the world. Barris approached Violet. She made no sound as she slept. It was strange. As Violet shifted in her sleep, parts of her body became exposed. Barris covered his face. His suspicions were correct. She wasn't wearing anything at all. Barris pretended nothing had happened, trying not to feel awkward. He couldn't tell if the woman was afraid of others or just a sound sleeper. This is really... Violet continued to sleep, oblivious to what had transpired. Barris brought a multitude of blankets, thinking someone as thin as a twig might catch a cold from the chilly air. After a while, Violet was covered in a mountain of blankets. Barris left the room. Time for a cold shower to cool down. Hearing the door slam shut, Violet quickly sat up. She looked towards the doorway. Did he really just go to take a shower? Just like that? Or have I become more sensitive because of the ghost? I was already awake when the door opened. I just pretended to still be in bed. When Barris kept staring at me, Violet covered her body with her hands. They kissed. Are we not finished yet? Didn't we skip too many steps? I was about to get up and yell. Thankfully, I didn't, or I would have written the most awkward story of the century. Violet lay back down. It's best if I just keep sleeping. She covered her face. But at this point, should I be angry that he didn't touch me, or angry that he didn't touch me? Violet sat up and looked somewhere. She slowly crawled towards the door and sat in front of Barris's bathroom door. just in case the ghost appeared. She stared at the doorknob, ready to fling the door open and run if the ghost appeared. Meanwhile, Varas was taking a shower in the room, unaware of Violet sitting outside. Varas thought if one can become skilled, they can sense the presence outside. Varas looked towards the door, seemingly aware of something. I'm guessing she's right behind that door. Even this cold water can't cool me down, knowing she's right behind me. Is she trying to kill me? This is pure torture. Violet faintly said from outside, "Are you still in there?" Varas recalled Violet's terrified expression when she was afraid of the ghost. That ghost was so scary. Varas blushed. Why is her voice trembling? So cute. After finishing his shower, Varas quickly got dressed. If I open the door and walk out now, I'll run into Violet. Us meeting in front of the bathroom door in the morning. Now it looks even more like we're a couple. As he stepped out, he saw Violet wrapped in a blanket, sitting in front of the bathroom door, tears welling in her eyes. Violet started crying again. So scary. Varas felt incredibly awkward seeing Violet cry. He was startled by how she was curled up, small like a little bean. After Anna arrived, Violet was able to return to her own room. Sitting in a chair, she thought, I can't just leave like this. She looked around and saw many servants. If I already have everything today, I just need to go out since there are people everywhere outside. But at night, thinking of this, Violet's expression turned gloomy again. Anna noticed this and asked, "Is something bothering you?" Violet replied, "Actually, I'm a little afraid of ghosts. I heard the story about the niece from Varas, so I thought if I'm alone, the ghost will come to me. I'm so worried." But what Anna said next surprised Violet. The niece is a ghost with an owner. She understands rituals and the way of life, a royal servant of the Duke's family. So you have absolutely no reason to be afraid. Moreover, that ghost is protecting this place. Inside and outside of Barris's estate, it's her domain, so other ghosts can't enter. So there's absolutely no reason to be afraid. Hearing this, Violet started to feel confused. She recalled what Barris had told her. Now that I think about it, Varas, he did say that. If the ghosts here were as scary as I knew. Anna continued, smiling. The niece is very kind, a little shy. If she knew you were afraid of her, she definitely wouldn't come near you. In Anna's mind, the niece was incredibly adorable. Hearing this, Violet finally breathed a sigh of relief. At first, it sounded like a bird. There's a ghost here who lives like a human. I wonder if they'll listen to me. At least I'm not as scared now. Suddenly, Violet remembered something. She recalled her actions after learning about the ghost's existence. The embarrassing acts replayed endlessly in Violet's mind. Oh my God, what have I done? They must be laughing their heads off at me. Varas knew everything, so why didn't he say anything? Seeing Violet's expression, Anna seemed worried. Violet started to cry. He's just too much. I need to get to the bottom of this. Now is the time. No, I don't have time for this. I want to look beautiful and captivating tonight when I have dinner with my sister-in-law. With that thought, she stood up with renewed confidence, startling Anna. She turned to Anna. Anna, help me. That evening, SR waited in the room. After a while, Violet and Varas arrived. Hello, have you been waiting long? Seeing them arrive, SR rose from her chair. Not at all. Seeing SR like this, Violet was delighted. She really has the same smile as Varas. Violet spoke to SR. The sky is so beautiful, and the wind is cool, isn't it? While chatting pleasantly with SR, Violet noticed Barris's downcast expression. Seeing this, Violet nudged Varas with her elbow. She feigned displeasure. Now I know this person isn't going to hurt me for glory. They went to dinner together, and on the way, Violet said, "Earlier, I saw a butterfly, and I think it will bloom soon. Even though it's already summer in the north, it's still cold, right? I'm really looking forward to it." SR simply listened quietly to Violet speak. Interesting, she thought. The noble women I've met in the Empire also say strange things, but after a while, most of them become disappointed and stop talking. Sometimes some people walk around before gatherings, pretending to be friendly. They're the ones who flatter others. On the other hand, she doesn't feel like Violet is like that. Or maybe she's just too foolishly naive. This fool follows behind her wife like a royal dog. After a moment of thought, SR said, "I'm really looking forward to summer." Varas was startled by these words. Anna, seeing they had something in common, immediately reached out and held SR's hand. That's wonderful. Varas followed behind, observing their conversation. He was quite surprised by what his sister said. A short while later, the three arrived at the dining table. As he ate, Varas thought, "Today, she hasn't even looked at me once. She must be." As he served Violet, Varas said, "I suppose because this is the first time the three of us have met, we have to be a bit cautious." Violet smiled. "What is the capital like?" SR replied, "It's just where people live. It's all the same." Hearing this casual reply, Violet still maintained a cheerful disposition. But I think there must be many beautiful buildings and rare items there, right? SR asked. What is your hometown like? Violet replied. It's in the southern suburbs, with many flowers, and it's always very peaceful. Suddenly, Violet realized something. She looked at SR. Why did I answer so quickly? Violet continued. It's a warm place. Violet continued to ponder. If my hometown really is in the south. She then recalled her time in Enoch. I still remember my whole life in Duimis. My hometown isn't in the south of the empire, but in Enoch. Thinking of this, Violet felt a pang of sadness. Varas noticed this and thought, did this foolish witch forget that she just lost her memory? I know her hometown, thankfully, but it was SR who caught Varas's attention. But my sister already knows. She must have realized by now that Violet is a witch. He watched with incredibly sharp eyes, wary of Violet falling into danger. The soul of witchcraft power is the dangerous demon, Krotos. Concentrated energy either increases or decreases sooner or later. So if a witch loses her power, there's no doubt she should be taken away. As far as I know, the number of witches my sister has defeated must be over 200. I can't imagine how powerful she is now. If her current power isn't enough to satisfy her, her next target will be this little witch rabbit. Suddenly, Varas stood up, taking Violet's hand. He looked at SR, his hand still clasped around Violet's. Perhaps it would be best to end the meal now. With that, Varas promptly led Violet away. A moment later, they had left the dining area. Varas noticed a tinge of sadness in Violet's expression. Suddenly, a question startled Violet. Have you grown taller? Violet, bristling, moved closer to Varas. So you think I can't grow any taller? Seeing Violet's annoyance, Varas quickly tried to placate her. Oh no, that's not what I meant. He felt a flush of embarrassment. He hadn't expected speaking to her, as he might to any other woman, would lead to such a misunderstanding. Varas watched sadly as Violet walked away. Hurt and irritated, Violet thought, so what if I'm smaller than Varas? It's because he's too tall, not because I'm too short. It turned out, Violet had worn heels today that made her appear taller. I even wore especially high heels. This is so frustrating. He spent the whole meal peeling shrimp for me and didn't even eat any himself. I thought I could forgive him a little for that. Do I really look like a child? SR remained seated in her room, sipping tea. Auguste entered bowing and greeting. He inquired, Sir, how are you? SR responded coldly. That's none of your concern. At this, Auguste pressed on. Typically, within 2 days after today, during the full moon, could the queen be with the Duchess? SR appeared displeased. Why should it be me? Auguste was taken aback by the response. He cried silently to himself, thinking, it would have been better to just say no. How am I supposed to get him to agree to this? Auguste then knelt. Please give me an answer that would satisfy you. SR remained silent, lost in thought. Actually, even if you could give me what I desire, I already have it. After a moment of contemplation, SR seemed to have come to a decision. She addressed Auguste. Tell me, why is Varas searching for the witch? Auguste was startled by the question. Does she already know everything? He thought, I have to be careful with my words. I must try not to mention her or that lady. Auguste spoke. Not long ago, a strange individual approached the castle. He was suspicious, wrapped entirely in bandages. While investigating this person, we discovered a large quantity of items that appear to have been used by a witch, items that were traded on the snowy mountain. Afterward, we surmised a witch was behind it, so we attempted to learn more. Hearing this, SR thought, I imagine he probably already knows everything. Although I've offered him a deal, he doesn't need to tell me what I already know. SR set down her teacup. Your words don't seem very believable. Furthermore, she turned to Auguste. Varas said he already has the soul circle. SR's gaze turned sharp. Tell me, does Varas possess a witch? And is he trying to capture other witches to cultivate her? Auguste was quite surprised by SR's assumption. He thought, starting this conversation was a mistake. Isn't it too much of a coincidence that the queen went to the north just when the lord was assassinated? One person exhaled, the other inhaled. People moved, eyes fixed on every muscle in his face, not to know the answer, but as if they already knew everything. Auguste trembled as he spoke. Your Majesty, we're definitely done for. Meanwhile, Varas was sitting in his room. He seemed unaware of the conversation between Auguste and SR. He was thinking about Violet's angry expression. Even though she was upset, she would still come to his room tonight, afraid of the ghost. As he was thinking, SR suddenly appeared outside, knocking on the door. She told Varas, "The queen knows everything. She knows we obtained the soul circle and are searching for the witch." Varas didn't seem overly concerned. Perhaps so, but SR continued, "It's only a matter of time before she's discovered." As a witch herself, SR knelt before Varas, seeking his command. "If you permit it, I can go to the palace and kidnap the prince, the one person the queen cannot live without." Varas responded, "Calm yourself. My sister has already made her move. I'm not ready yet." Varas continued, "The crown prince has already been formally invited under a plausible pretext, so he will arrive within 10 days. The plausible pretext Varas referred to was that the queen, driven by curiosity about her brother's fiancé, had journeyed to the north, where she now endured agonizing pain brought on by the harsh cold and faced the prospect of death. Even in her delirium, she continued to call out her son's name. If he truly was her son, he should hasten to see his mother before her condition worsened." Auguste pondered this, realizing that deceiving a 14-year-old child in such a manner might be. Varas interrupted his thoughts. "It's highly likely the Emperor will come as well, but there's no other way." Varas's gaze turned dangerous. "I know my sister's character better than anyone. If she wants something, she has to have it. If necessary, she might even sever someone's limbs to achieve her goals. Before she focuses her attention on Violet any further, we need to prepare countermeasures. It's cruel, but I must place what she holds dear within reach. Only then will she refrain from acting recklessly." Varas addressed Auguste directly. "Find that strange, which as quickly as possible. Secrecy is more important than speed, so be careful not to let any information fall into her hands." "Yes, I understand." As Auguste was about to leave, Varas continued, "Maisol, has your sister's health recovered?" Varas thought to himself, "That troublesome physician has been constantly interfering between Violet and me." Auguste replied, "Yes, sir." Inwardly, he wondered, why is he asking about this? Varas's inner monologue continued, "This isn't good. I was hoping her recovery would be slower. I intended to use her illness as an excuse to keep her away." Auguste clearly noticed Varas's displeasure. Damn it, contrary to Varas's thoughts. However, Auguste thought, excellent. Our master has finally developed a compassionate eye for understanding the hearts of others. Maisol is the most precious person in my life, just as a crown prince is to his queen. After touching upon his most vulnerable point, his compassion has finally blossomed. So, spring has finally returned to the north. Perhaps it's precisely because of his concern that she has improved recently. They say her body is now capable of movement, so further treatment isn't necessary. Auguste relayed this information to Varas cheerfully. Hearing this, Varas became even more displeased. "Why is that? I wanted to see Violet." Meanwhile, Violet stood on the balcony, gazing at the starry sky. This truly is a beautiful place. As she admired the heavens, she suddenly noticed a familiar figure on horseback below. It was Varas, seemingly on his way somewhere. Violet thought to herself, the most handsome and trustworthy man in the world is my husband. Thinking back, I wonder what happened to those people he took away. If I didn't know Varas, I might assume they were dealt with quietly and left for the crows. But looking closely, he's actually quite different. He's kind, considerate, somewhat courteous, yet also valiant. Oh, right, I was given an anklet, asterisk. With that thought, Violet lifted her skirt, glancing down at her foot. She observed the glittering anklet, asterisk, but how exactly am I supposed to use this? It's a gift from Varas, so I must use it carefully. I can't even see the clasp. Asterisk. Violet watched Varas right away. Asterisk. I'll ask Varas about it later. Although he seems cold, he's still a good husband. Asterisk. Violet's expression softened slightly. Asterisk. Of course, those jokes were a bit much. Regardless, I believe he wouldn't harm anyone without reason. He probably sent that man back to his hometown, maybe with a warning never to return to the north. That's probably what happened. Asterisk. Violet shimmered in the moonlight. Where did the real Violet's spirit go? At this thought, a flicker of sadness crossed Violet's face. All of this should have belonged to her. She looked down at her hands, wondering if it was too greedy to want to stay in this place forever. Violet looked up at the sky, a pang of guilt twisting in her heart. Was it too cruel to pretend I don't know anything? Meanwhile, Varas noticed Violet standing on the balcony, gazing at the stars. He admired her radiant beauty. Varas smiled, knowing this beautiful witch, with eyes that shimmered like the stars themselves, was his wife. Would she come to his bedroom again tonight? Varas, still blissfully unaware that Violet knew the truth, waited. Dawn had already broken. Varas now sat anxiously in a chair, wondering why she hadn't come to his room last night. If I wait here, perhaps I'll see you. Lost in thought, Varas didn't notice Violet approaching him from behind. Seeing Varas, Violet brightened. Did you sleep well? She asked. Varas looked weary. I couldn't sleep at all, he replied. Why didn't you come yesterday? Violet looked puzzled. Yesterday, Varas continued. I thought you would avoid my nephew and come to me. Realizing what he meant, Violet quickly put some distance between herself and Varas. Did something like that happen? She said, pouting. You keep mentioning your nephew just to tease me. That's too much. Apologize right now. Seeing Violet like this, Varas could only apologize. With a sorrowful expression, he said, My fault. I am sorry. Seeing him like this, Violet thought, actually, I'm not that angry anymore. It feels kind of nice that Varas keeps apologizing, but if it goes on too long, it'll be pathetic. Best to lighten the mood. She then extended her hand towards Varas. Take me to the fountain in the market. With just that one sentence from Violet, all of Varas's sorrow seemed to vanish. He took her hand, feeling like her knight. At this thought, Varas knelt before Violet, feeling honored. After changing their clothes, they headed towards the fountain. Both appeared shy, avoiding each other's gaze. They were enveloped in a deeply romantic atmosphere. SR, sitting in a nearby building, had already taken notice of everything. The scene truly captured her attention. She addressed the person standing behind her. How was the investigation going? I apologize, but their movements have become secretive since this morning, so the investigation is progressing slowly. The high-ranking official thought, of course they'd take countermeasures since we're openly investigating. Even while becoming aggressive at a time like this, that boy still displays the skills of someone undefeated on the battlefield. They say when Northerners accomplish a task, they conduct a preliminary investigation and utilize Varas's overwhelming power. The important thing isn't blocking information, but remaining silent and concealing everything. Not cute at all. The high-ranking official thought, these idiots can't gather accurate information, only good at blocking it. She looked at Violet. In comparison, the girl seemed like a harmless creature, petite, fragile, and always smiling. A shadow flickered in SR's eyes. Search for that witch. From the palace to Barris's territory, for the perpetually snow-capped mountains to the central border. Don't forget to search the villages near the mines. I thought I hid her well, but compared to the foxes of the court, it's nothing. Look at what they're doing. There's an 80% chance the witch is hidden somewhere. The high-ranking official smiled smugly, daring to raise a witch behind my back. Let's consider this a gift for my sister's enjoyment, dear little brother. It was time to end their outing. Violet smiled at Varas. Shall we go back? Varas happily followed behind Violet. As they passed a stall selling ribbons, Violet suddenly stopped. Curious, Varas stepped forward to see what had caught her attention. Violet's gaze had lingered on a turquoise ribbon, but only for a moment before she continued walking. Watching Violet's retreating figure, Varas's mind began to churn. If she had long hair, she would definitely need this. Why not buy it for her? But without further thought, Varas turned to leave. It's pretty, but suddenly, someone tugged on his cloak. Varas's face hardened into a fearsome expression. Who is it? But when he turned, Varas jumped. It was SR, her face a mask of fury. Go find that idiot. Seeing his sister so enraged, Varas was utterly bewildered. Unsure what to do, he turned back to the stall. Take this. Violet waited for a while, then saw Varas returning. Where did you go? She asked. Smiling, she continued, You seem to be talking to your sister just now, so I didn't call out to you. Varas thought. I assumed only I could sense her arrival. She really is a witch. Violet looked behind Varas. But where is she? Varas replied, She's already gone. But why are you interested in that? Violet said, I was a little worried. I don't really understand aristocratic etiquette. If you think it's appropriate, I thought it would be better to invite your sister along. She's part of your family too, and she came all this way to see us. Hearing Violet say this, Varas thought, if you ask me, I'm just anxious because we can't meet openly. But family is the most important thing. Varas smiled. Family is the most important thing. He told Violet, it's all right. I'll tell her.